Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to call to order the Planning and Development Committee meeting for today. There are some changes to the agenda that I'd like to bring to members of council's attention. There is a replacement page for item 4.3. It's been handed out, and before you is 4.3.8. There's a corrected map. Under delegations, we have two added delegations for item 7.1. It is the application to amend the zoning bylaw, Corsiac Urban Planning, Kennedy Road Limited, 174 Kennedy Road South. And the two delegations are Andre LeBlanc and Lorene Hattelt. Under item 5.2, we also have two added delegations. It is the application for proposed draft plan of subdivision, southwest corner of Damaris Drive and Great Lakes Drive in Ward 9. It's Robert Walters from PMG Planning and Zahir Bacchus, Imam and Amjad Iqbal. So I am going to assume that these three individuals as community leaders will be coming forward at the same time. There is also an added delegation for item 11.1. That is a matter that's been deferred for a couple of meetings now. We are a delegation that was deferred from the previous meeting was Edward Zuchek, and we have another added delegation from Basim Matuk. There is also two added pieces of correspondence. One is from Bal Shakti, the other is from Vijay Baggi, both Brampton residents. It is in relationship to item 4.1 on the agenda this evening, correspondence on the application to amend the official plan, Glenn Schnarr and Associates, Block Pan 47-1 Landowners Group. It's north of Castlemore Road, east of the Gore Road, south of Mayfield, and west of Rainbow Creek. The other was mailed to us earlier today. It is correspondence from Scott Snyder, Turkstra Matza, dated June the 5th. It is correspondence on the application to amend the zoning bylaw and proposed draft plan of subdivision, Malone Given Parsons, TAC Holborn Corporation, and it is related to item 4.4. Are there any other changes to the agenda? Did I catch them all, Mr. Clerk? We're working off a new consolidated agenda this evening, which is, I think we're all going to have to kind of get used to it. Councillor Dillon, did you have a change to the agenda?
Consent.
When we get to consent, I'll ask you. We do have to remove something from consent because we have delegations on it this evening in any event. So with those changes to the agenda, would someone like to move approval? Councillor Bowman, all those in favor? That's carried. Are there any declarations of interest under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act? Seeing none. That is for the consent agenda, I'm assuming, Councillor Dillon? Okay, under consent, Councillor Dillon.
I wanted to remove 7.2 from consent.
Okay. We have two delegations
Yeah.
on that, so we would withdraw it in any event. Thank you for removing that from consent. Would you like to move the consent agenda as amended? All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. We now move to the statutory public meeting reports. This is a public meeting of the Planning and Development Committee held in accordance with the requirements of the Planning Act. The proposals heard at this public meeting are as a result of applications made to the City under the Planning Act of Ontario. These are not proposals of the City of Brampton unless they are specifically identified as City-initiated proposals. The intent of this public meeting is to hear submissions from the public. Members of the committee may ask questions of clarification only, but will not engage in discussion. I'll ask if you could put on the screen where, great, so you can see where we are in the process when an application is before us under the statutory public meeting portion. We're at the very early stages of that. I will go through each of the reports that are here. There are 6 of them, and I will ask if anybody is in attendance, and if you would like to see a presentation or speak on the matter. So the first one is the report from Policy Planner M. Majid. It is an application to amend the official plan, Glenn Schnarr and Associates, Block Plan 47-1 Landowner Group and Block Plan 47-2 Landowner Group to implement Block Plan 47.1 and Block Plan 47-2 land use policies north of Castlemore, east of the Gore Road, south of Mayfield, and west of Rainbow Creek in Ward 10. Is anybody in attendance this evening that wishes to see a presentation on this evening or speak on this application? If you are here, if you could just put your hand up in the air. Is anybody in attendance that wishes to see a presentation? Great, thank you. We'll go back to that item then. We have a report from Neil Grady, Development Planner, Planning and Development Services, application to amend the zoning bylaw and proposed draft plan of subdivision, KLM Planning Partners, Incorporated GB, to permit single detached dwellings, park, and a place of worship purposes at 1637 Mayfield Road, southeast corner of Thornbush Boulevard and Mayfield Road in Ward 6. Is anybody in attendance for this item this evening and wishes to see a presentation or speak on this item? I'm looking for some hands in the air if you're interested. I'll ask one more time. Is anybody in attendance for item 4.2 this evening, an application on Mayfield Road? Seeing none, I will adjourn that item for this evening. Under 4.3, it's a report from Rob Nicafortune, Development Planner. It's an application to amend the zoning bylaw, KLM Planning Partners, 4X Developments west of Mississauga Road and north of Ostrander Boulevard in Ward 6. Is anybody in attendance for that item this evening and wishes to see a presentation or speak on that item? Did I see a hand up there? No, this isn't an auction. You didn't buy anything. Is anybody in attendance for item 4.3 this evening? It makes me nervous when I see people still coming in the room because I'm afraid I might adjourn them. Okay, we will adjourn that item, but I think given that folks are still coming into the chambers, I may double check when we get to item 4.3. Under 4.4, it's a report from N. Mahmood, Development Planner. It's an application to amend the official plan and zoning bylaw, TAC Holborn Corporation, to permit the development of 124 single detached dwellings, 26 townhouse blocks containing 152 townhouses, a medium high density block and office employment block, a park block, a stormwater management facility block, buffer blocks, natural heritage system, and public streets at 8863 the Gore Road. Is anybody in attendance for this item this evening and wishes to see a presentation or speak on the item? Okay, thank you. Under 4.5, it's a development report from A. Balram, Development Planner, application to amend the zoning bylaw and proposed draft plan of subdivision, KLM Planning Partners, Cal Queen West Developments, to permit a proposed plan of subdivision consisting of 37 detached dwellings, a residential block for existing dwelling, and an open space block, and an emergency access block at 1324, 1328, and 1342 Queen Street West. Is anybody in attendance for that this evening and wishes to see a presentation or speak on that item? One more time, is anybody in attendance for item 4.5 this evening? Seeing none, we will adjourn that. Under 4.6, it's a report from A. Balram, Development Planner, application to amend the zoning bylaw and proposed draft plan of subdivision, Design Plan Service Incorporated, Wolverley Construction Limited, to permit 4 single detached lots, 6 residential reserve blocks, and the extension of Rainbrook Close in Ward 10. Is anybody in attendance for that item this evening and wishes to see a presentation or speak on that item? I see one hand up there. Great. Okay, we'll go back to item 4.1. sorry, 4.7, we have one more. Thank you. It's an item 4.7 is a report from John Spencer, Manager, Parks Planning and Development Services. It is a city-initiated amendment to the official plan and parkland dedication bylaw. Is anybody in attendance for that item this evening and wishes to speak on it or speak on it? It's been a long day, folks. There was the William Osler Golf Tournament today, so it's a good thing it's a busy meeting because we'll have to pay attention. So is anybody in attendance for the city-initiated amendments to the official plan and parkland dedication bylaw? Seeing none, we will adjourn that item for this evening. And so we won't, Mr. Clerk, 4.7, we'll have to deal with that as a recommendation report from staff, even though there's no presentation. Okay, thank you. So we'll go back to item 4.1. It is the report on the Glenschnar and Associates to implement Block Plan 47.1 and 47.2. We will have an application, the applicant present from Stephen Wimmer from MBTW Group. Welcome. And it'll be followed by a staff presentation from Malik Majid.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, members of council, staff, and area residents. Can everyone hear me okay?
Actually, if we can have you come around to this side of the podium. And the reason why we do that during this statutory public meeting is because you're here to speak to the members of the public who are here this evening.
I've never been in the inner circle.
Wow. Don't you feel special?
I may not be here that long, I guess. Oh, that's much better. I apologize for my back to
No,
you.
it's okay.
Okay.
It's more important that the folks in the
And
audience...
how can I... thank you very much. My name is Stephen Wimmer, and Managing Principal of the MBTW Group WAI. We are urban designers and landscape architects, and are very pleased to be here today. The purpose of this presentation is to demonstrate and to show everyone and explain the vision that has been set up for this community. Collaboration has been a big C here. The consultants, which include planners, thank you. Planners, engineers, urban designers, environmentalists, as well as the landowners. The City of Brampton staff have been very helpful. Transit, engineering, public urban design, as well as the parks departments. Agencies include the Region Appeal, the TRCA, the Conservation Authority, as well as the public and Catholic school boards. Together, we are implementing a secondary plan and the city's vision for this area. It's been a great working process to date, but we're not done yet. We still have some finessing and some work to do. So for us, the keys were threefold: to protect the cultural and natural heritage of the community, to create a complete community, and to maintain and enhance job creation. So I'm going to expand on those for a moment. Protecting the integrity of the natural and cultural heritage, the green spaces, and/or the cultural buildings, and we'll speak to that in a moment. A complete community, what is that? It's a community that has regard for pedestrian connections, where the parks and schools are evenly distributed throughout the community, where there are the fullest mix of uses possible, where we have a hierarchy of streets, and the fullest range of housing forms and tenures possible. Active transportation, I'll expand on that later on, as well as being transit supportive. In addition to that, the final point was to create jobs through the new elementary and high school sites in both blocks, the district retail, as well as highway commercial, neighborhood commercial, and convenience sites throughout. To the natural heritage, there are three tributaries: the Gore Road tributary, the Clarkway tributary, and the Rainbow Creek tributary. All parties worked together to ensure that we could protect and enhance these last three corridors, the valley corridors, in the future to be augmented by trail systems, pedestrian connectivity, to the benefit of the new residents as well as existing residents of the City of Brampton. Early in the process, the city had identified the need and desire for 40 acres for a community park within this block plan area. We worked with the city and the landowners to find the appropriate location. Landowners group agreed to acquire and to convey this piece of land to the city as a community park whenever it is needed in the public interest in the future, to serve not just these immediate area residents, but existing residents as well. Should note that this park design is conceptual, is just to show how it could work. The final design program will be determined by the City of Brampton closer to the time of implementation. The plan proposes a number of school sites that will serve not only the new residents for this community, but also existing residents in the surrounding existing communities. Neighborhood parks are located within the 5-minute walk. For us, that's about 400 meters. And that was a bit of a challenge. With the green fingers that worked its way through, we needed to make sure that the schools and parks were evenly distributed throughout so that all children can have a 5-minute walk to their park and or school. What we've identified here, the small circles represent the 5-minute walk around the park, and rather than showing all of them, we've just shown a few. But you can see in the green spaces, all the green dots represent park areas. The larger circle represents the 10-minute walk catchment area to the larger community park. One of the key features of the community plan is the Clarkway Main Street spine. And so this is located on Clarkway Drive, south of the Trans-Canada Pipeline. The development group actually embraced wholeheartedly the city's vision to create a main street here with a mix of uses and variety of housing types. Illustration on the left-hand side and the photographs begin to give you a sampling of the types of built form and character that would be realized in those areas. Clarkway Drive, north of the Trans-Canada Pipeline, is a special character area. It has scenic drive qualities and environmental features on both sides, but primarily on the west side. It also includes some of the most significant heritage buildings which will be incorporated into the community plan going forward. We are working very closely with city staff to ensure that the existing 2-lane traffic, 1 lane each direction, is maintained. This is a key tenet to ensure the sustainability of the character street. To the housing forms, further detail will follow as the plan becomes more advanced. The goal is that the community will provide housing that provides a wide range of choices, everything from executive housing to low-rise apartment buildings. Executive housing is a key element of this community plan. The executive housing is situated along and adjacent to the valley edges and where it abuts existing larger homes. As mentioned, active transportation is very important. Well, what does that mean? Providing opportunities for something other than cars. So whether it's public transit, walkways, pedestrian ways, or cycling in the form of trails, linkages, and sidewalks. And in the comprehensive network through here, we've identified wonderful opportunities in detail that allow linkages across the valleys, all of which need to be detailed at some point in the future with city staff and the Conservation Authority. So that concludes my brief overview presentation. Thank you. Again, I apologize for turning my back to you, but you're right, this is more important.
You haven't hurt our feelings at all. I'd now like to invite Malik Majid, if you could present the city's presentation on this. Thank you.
Good evening, Madam Chair, committee members and members of the public. My name is Malik Majid and I am the planner currently responsible for managing the review of this application to amend the official plan for approval of block plans for sub-areas 47-1 and 47-2. The subject lands are located within the Highway 427 Industrial Secondary Plan in Northeast Brampton. Block 47-1 is approximately 615 acres in size and is bounded by the proposed east-west arterial road that runs along the Trans-Canada Pipeline to the north, Castlemore Road to the south, the Gore Road to the west, and the Rainbow Creek to the east. And Block 47-2 is about 1,047 acres in size and is bounded generally by Mayfield Road to the north, the east-west arterial road to the south, the Gore Road to the west, and a proposed collector road east of Clarkway Drive, as well as the Clarkway tributary to the east. An official plan amendment application has been submitted with respect to the proposed block plans and is the subject of this public meeting. Block plans are intended to implement the policies of secondary plans on a sub-area basis by coordinating the delivery of services and infrastructure, allocation of development priority, layout of arterial, collector, and strategic local roads, and the location, configuration, character, size and urban form of residential, institutional and commercial uses, parks, the layout and function of valley lands, woodlands and other natural features and functions, as well as stormwater management. Community block plans are required to be undertaken for the block plan areas identified on Schedule H of the official plan in accordance with the requirements of Section 5.5 of the official plan. Following block plans is the next stage of planning, which is the draft plans of subdivision. A bit of background to this block plan application. Official plan amendment OP 2006-105 was that implements the Area 47 secondary plan was adopted by City Council in September of 2014. It was appealed to the Ontario Municipal Board by the province, the regional appeal and some of the Area 47 landowners. The OMB partially approved OP 2006-105 in March of 2017 with respect to a majority of the residential area, which largely includes the lands subject to this application, as well as a portion of the employment lands. Following is a summary of the proposed block plans. It's planned to accommodate in the order of 25,000 to 27,000 residents, upwards of 7,000 dwelling units, 3,500 jobs, and yield a combined density upwards of 52 persons and jobs per hectare. It provides for a variety of residential types and densities and complementary uses including commercial, mixed-use, and institutional uses. It identifies the location and configuration of roads, the location and size of parks, school sites, and stormwater management ponds, the protection, enhancement, and restoration of natural heritage system, and it provides for the timely delivery of services and infrastructure through developer cost-sharing agreement. Block 47-1 designates the residential lands largely for low medium density residential uses. Which generally permits a maximum of 12 units per net acre. It also proposes medium density uses at the northeast corner of the Gore Road and Castlemore Road that permits a maximum of 20 units per acre. A Clarkway Drive mixed-use residential retail corridor is proposed between Castlemore Road and the Trans-Canada Pipeline, with policies that require a minimum of 20 units per acre for freestanding residential uses and a minimum of 40 units per acre for the mixed-use areas within that corridor. Also proposed are district retail and neighborhood retail uses, as well as a highway commercial designation. Community uses include a secondary school, 3 elementary schools. There are 7 parks identified in this block plan. There is also a natural heritage system consisting of valley lands, restoration areas, and then stormwater management ponds, cultural heritage resources, as well as a collector road network to support the full development of this block plan area. A summary of amendments to the secondary plan that are proposed as part of block plan 47-1 is to add this new medium density residential designation on the northeast corner of the Gore Road and Castlemore Road, as well as policies associated with that, to revise the secondary plan policies with respect to the district retail and neighborhood retail designations, to permit residential uses, provided that the retail function is retained and provided that it is demonstrated that a mix of uses will be yielded ultimately within that designation. It also proposes to delete the service commercial designation that was initially proposed at the northeast corner of Clarkway Drive and Castlemore Road. Redesignates lands at the southeast corner of Clarkway Drive and the proposed east-west arterial road from low-medium density residential to an additional public secondary school that was requested by the Peel District School Board. As well, the block plan proposes a new special policy area at the southeast corner of the extension of Bloom Drive and Garden Brook Trail to promote live-work opportunities within that area. Block 47-2 is north of 47-1. It proposes 530 upscale executive residential units, whereas the official plan and the secondary plan require the delivery of a minimum of 600 such units within the secondary plan area. Also proposed are neighborhood retail and convenience retail uses, as well as live-work opportunities. Community uses include another secondary school in this block plan, 4 elementary schools, an existing site for a place of worship, a fire station, and then there is that large 40-acre community park at the northeast corner of Clarkway Drive and Castlemore Road, as well as 10 neighborhood park designations. The natural heritage system within this block includes valley lands, restoration areas, as well as a significant woodlot that links the Gore Road tributary and the Clarkway tributary. Also identified are stormwater management ponds, cultural heritage resources, a Clarkway special character road between Castlemore Road and Countryside Drive, a collector road network, and a corridor protection area that is now consistent with the province's GTA West corridor preliminary route planning study area. The summary of changes to the block plan 47-2 as I said, is with regard to, one is with regard to the delivery of those executive residential units. It proposes to delete the service commercial designation within this block and to revise the policies with respect to Special Policy Area 1. Those are the lands on the east side of Clarkway Drive, south of Countryside Drive, up to the east-west arterial road. The proposal is to permit uses consistent with that Clarkway Drive mixed-use residential retail designation. The changes to the official plan and the zoning bylaw that are proposed as part of this application. The lands within these block plans are designated residential open space, corridor protection area, special study area on Schedule A, and as upscale executive housing special policy area on Schedule A1 of the official plan. The lands are zoned agricultural, with some of the lands zoned as floodplain, and one property zoned as institutional, which is the property that is currently a place of worship on the south side of Mayfield Road and east of Clarkway. No zoning amendments are being proposed at this time through the block plan process. Zoning amendments will be required in conjunction with draft plans of subdivision. The block plan areas are designated for several secondary plan uses as highlighted there. I don't want to run through each of those. So some of the issues that will have to be addressed as the city processes this block plan application would include this issue of the corridor protection area, which now is correctly identified, as I said, in block 47-2 in accordance with the OMB order. An area 47 arterial roads EA is currently underway, and the east-west arterial road, Clarkway Drive, arterial A2, Coleraine Drive and Countryside Drive will be finalized through this arterial roads EA, and the block plan, ultimate block plan approval would have to address those final alignments. A number of environmentally significant features such as valley and watercourse corridors have been identified. The extent to which these need to be protected will be addressed through environmental implementation reports that staff is currently reviewing in consultation with the TRCA. The applicant has submitted growth management phasing and sequencing report that is currently being reviewed by staff. A key objective is to ensure the timely delivery of services and infrastructure to new residents while maintaining the desirable service to existing residents. A comprehensive review of growth management will be provided in a forthcoming recommendation report by staff. So the next steps would include the processing of this application, considering all comments that are received from the public and agencies following this public meeting. At a future time, staff will present a recommendation report for the consideration of Planning Committee and the Council. The report will include a discussion on all of those comments that have been provided. All members of the public that provide their contact information for this application will be advised when that future recommendation report will be presented. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Are there any members of the public who wish to speak on this item this evening? Can I ask you, sir, if you could sign in with Risha? If you could sign in and then come forward to make your statement. And you'll have 5 minutes. Yeah. This is a good chance for those folks who've been standing at the door waiting to come on in and grab a place to sit. Thank you. Hi, if you could state your name for the public record, and you'll have 5 minutes. Thank
Yes,
you.
thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Dan O'Reilly and members of the committee. I just got the notice of this meeting a couple of days ago, so I didn't really have time to compose a formal presentation, but I will do that in writing. I didn't realize this was divided in 47-2 and 47-1, but I'd like to just make a brief comment about 47-2, if I could. At the very top, at Mayfield Road, on the top west border of that block, it borders the Marysfield subdivision. That is the first housing cooperative in Ontario, and I think that historic and contextual value of that subdivision needs to be taken into account as the development of this area goes through.
Okay.
And the other thing I just want to mention, I did send a letter to the city in 2013. It was sent to Mrs. Brenton, the legislative coordinator for the city, and I did send a copy to Mr. Majid. I mentioned that there was not a historic farmhouse and property at 7905 Mayfield Road, where the Jain Temple is now, and I hope that letter is still on file. I had asked that some recognition of that farm. There was a barn that was painted red. You could see it for several kilometers away. So I'm hoping that will be taken into account when the plan of any parks go through.
Thank you very much. Any comments made here this evening are recorded by staff. If you have any copies of things that you want to leave with staff or forward to them following tonight's meeting, any comments will be responded to in the staff recommendation report when it comes forward. But thank you very much for coming forward and reminding us of that. Councillor Palashi, do you have a question of clarification of the delegation? Excuse me, sir. One of the councillors, Councillor Palashi, has a question of clarification on your question this evening.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And to the delegate, I'm not 100% sure on what you were referring to in the northwest corner of it was the first co-op in Ontario?
Yes, that's been a documented fact. It was the first housing cooperative in Ontario. It was written up in the Heritage Department's, I forget the name of the newsletter, but yes.
And what are you asking us to
Well,
keep in
when
mind?
the next development goes right beside that subdivision, that there's be some sort of
like a buffer?
A buffer.
Okay.
Because if you're driving along Mayfield Road west into Wildfield, you wouldn't even know there was a subdivision there because the first owners and the subsequent owners have planted trees all around. You wouldn't even know the subdivision. So I think that, as I mentioned earlier, I think that should be taken into account.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for the reminder. Anybody else wish to speak on this item this evening? If not, we'll proceed to the delegations by Councillor Dillon. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. We'll move now. I had initially adjourned item 4.2, but we've had a number of people come into the council chambers since I've done that. Is anybody here this evening to speak on the application to permit single detached dwellings, a park, and a place of worship purposes at 1637 Mayfield Road? Is anybody here for that this evening? Seeing none, then we will keep that item adjourned. Under 4.3, I'm going to ask the same question. Somebody may have come into the chambers after we adjourned that. It is an application to amend the zoning bylaw. KLM Planning Partners, 4X Developments, west of Mississauga Road and north of Ostrander. Is anybody here for that item this evening? Seeing none, then we'll move to item 4.4, and I'll invite Don Given from Malone Given Parsons to come forward and do the presentation on behalf of the applicant, and then the staff presentation will be done by Nasir Mahmood. Hi, Don.
Pardon?
I thought you went up in that direction, so thank you and welcome this evening.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, Your Worship, members of council, members of staff.
Don, do you want to just wait a moment until
sorry.
some of the folks leave the chambers? I'm sure it's nothing you said.
No, while I'm waiting, there is a packet that's being distributed, which is a paper copy of my presentation. It may be helpful if you just follow along.
Terrific, thank you.
Thank you very much. The site that we're talking about is the northeast corner of Queen Street and the Gore Road. It's been the subject of an earlier public meeting which my client applied for a conversion from an employment use to a residential use. And that application was filed in April 2013, approximately 4 years ago. And it's taken us 4 years to get to the point where we have an application now that may be processed by the municipality. So it's a long story. I want to try to make it as short and as clear as possible. Starting first with the official plan that was in place in 1993, it designated these lands as employment. Business industrial was the term that was used with a primary office node. For 25 years, the lands have sat vacant. This is the time to make a decision on how to go forward and change that. The original application that my client had was very ambitious. He wanted to do all residential on the property. Total residential, total conversion. Staff have been very diligent and vigorous in defending the public interest here to protect the opportunity for jobs. And the application that has been revised, and I will show it to you, does that. But the original application had approximately 630 units 4 years ago. Subsequent to that, the municipality undertook a study called a Municipal Comprehensive Review. That's a provincial term that's used to describe a process that a municipality goes to look at comprehensively all of the opportunities that they have for growing, and included in that is whether or not any employment land should be converted to non-employment uses. And that has concluded. It concluded in April this year with a staff recommendation for the conversion of a portion of these lands. That would be 14.84 hectares would be residential, and the balance would be kept for employment. The employment area that we are talking about basically is the pink area that you see at this bottom end of the site, which is about 7.5 acres in size, and it will be, instead of a warehouse or some other use of that nature, it will be offices. High-density offices, the type of offices that this municipality has wanted for some time. It's about 3 hectares in size. Previously, the municipality expected to have about 860 jobs on the entire site. This proposal will put 860 high-quality office jobs into a smaller site in a 3-story buildings in behind. But the bulk of this, I will describe later, is basically market rent, spec building, intended to capture the attributes that are along Queen Street, including the higher density transit or high intensity transit that's coming. If I could. The original plan that was submitted was a plan that I described as all residential, What we're now proposing is to amend the secondary plan so that the office area is at the south end, adjacent to Gore Road and Queen Street, and to show the balance as apartment, park, and medium density and lower density residential uses. The effect of that proposal, if approved, would be to require that the office be built basically concurrent with the residential. There's a special restriction that was endorsed by council that requires the office to go concurrent with the residential. The plan that you see on the right, if I could, on the right here is a revised plan. What your staff will report on shortly is the plan that we submitted some time ago, But we've been listening to staff, and trying to adapt, trying to make changes that we think capture all of the requirements of staff. So what we now have is a plan on the right. I've titled it May the 9th. It's very current, and we will be submitting that because we think it is now the plan that has incorporated into what we are doing, everything that staff has asked us to do. And portions of that include an extra widening of Gore Road, which you can just see basically on the bottom left corner. There's a nip into the site. Gore Road alignment had to be incorporated. A lower number of grade access units, so we don't have as many of the lower density units. A slightly larger apartment block, a larger park located on the west side of the north-south roadway. The storm pond has been relocated to reflect your engineering views that have been passed on to us. We've got much more of a grid system, which is part of the style of planning that we're all encouraged to try to follow. And we've got a block that's running along the water course that allows for people to view the water course and to enter into it for a walkway. So the effect is we've got a 3-hectare employment area at the south end. That 3-hectare employment area will accommodate more than 860 jobs, which is what was originally planned for the entire area. 860 is based on a number that comes from old studies. Today we use our office space far more efficiently than we used to. In this digital world that we're working in, we don't have filing cabinets, we hardly have secretaries, hardly any assistants. Everything is moving to a tighter use of the space. And today, the 27 meters per employee, which was the standard that was being considered to get to the 860, is outdated. We will have the opportunity to have about twice as many jobs in this building. We're working today with, if you convert the 27 meters, it's about 290 square feet per employee. I don't know what you have in the city hall, some of you may know that per employee, but in commercial space, we typically work at somewhere around 120 square feet per employee today. The other thing I wanted to talk to you about very quickly is you put an awful lot of effort in trying to transform the way you expect development to occur in your city. You've used the terms growing up, not out. That's exactly what we are trying to do with this proposal. The Queen Street Transit Master Plan is something you've invested heavily in to try to make it a reality. What we are proposing will place adjacent to it at a key intersection an opportunity for offices at a density that's in the range of about 200 persons and jobs to the hectare. Something in that range supports higher transit. That's the standard the province uses as a measure for frequent transit service. The other thing that I wanted to just touch on briefly is the actual look of what we're talking about. This is the northeast corner. The office buildings that you see here, 9 stories, are what we would like to propose. They will have an at-grade commercial component, and then above that, these are market office buildings. And in behind, there would be opportunities for lower density buildings. But this key corner, which is a key corner in your system, we think is going to support the attractive buildings that you see in this rendering. They'll be geared to the economies that we work in. High-tech technologies will be used. They'll be done to the highest standards of LEED, and I think it's a kind of development that you'll point to in the future and say that's what we want elsewhere. With respect to the high-density residential, this is an apartment block. You've had some difficulty getting apartments built in this community over the years. Again, as a part of trying to grow up and adjacent to transit, this is an excellent location to accommodate it. That density there, another 200 in persons to the hectare is the cap on it. I'd like to think that we could even do better than that, but there's a process we still have to go through to refine all of this. Our next steps is that we need an amendment to the secondary plan. We need an amendment or an approval of a draft plan, an amendment to your zoning bylaw, all of which can be dealt with in one process. We have those 3 applications before you. Look forward to your support. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I'll now invite Nasir Mahmood from the City of Brampton to do a presentation on behalf of staff. Thank you.
Good evening, Madam Chair, committee members and members of the public. My name is Nasir Mahmood and I'm the development planner responsible for the managing of the review of this application to amend the official plan and zoning bylaw and the proposed plan of subdivision. I shall be speaking to the technical aspects of the proposal and the next steps in the planning process. I can go to the next one. Okay. The property is located on the east side of the Core Road, north of Queen Street East. The proposal involves an amendment to the official plan and zoning bylaw and a proposed draft plan of subdivision to divide the lands for 124 single detached dwellings of various lot widths, 26 townhouse blocks containing 152 townhouses, a medium high density block, an employment office block and a park block, a stormwater management facility block, a buffer block, natural heritage system, and public streets. The property is currently designated office and business corridor in the official plan. These designations do not permit the proposed residential use. The conversion of these lands from employment lands to mixed employment and residential designation was approved by Council in May 2016. A related city-initiated official plan amendment was approved by the Council on April 26, 2017 to redesignate these lands from business corridor designation to residential and special land use policy area 19, and the office designation to office and special land use policy area 19. The Council's decision has been appealed to the Ontario Municipal Board. The property is designated neighborhood retail, mixed commercial, industrial, and special policy area 8 within the Brampton East Secondary Plan, which do not permit the proposed residential use. An amendment to the secondary plan, therefore, would be required. The property is zoned Industrial 4, 1995, and Service Commercial, subsection 1914, 15, and 16 in the zoning bylaw 270-2004 as amended. An amendment to the zoning bylaw is required to permit the proposed uses. In terms of the next steps, I will continue to process the application and complete a planning review when all expert comments are received. I will be preparing a recommendation report which will include a detailed evaluation of the proposal that will be brought back to the Planning and Development Committee. The recommendation report will include a discussion on any comments or questions that are received from the public. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Nasir, thank you very much. Councillor Palashi, you have a question of clarification on the presentations?
Clarification.
Better be.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
For clarity, I was wondering if staff had seen the revised draft plan. I know it's not in our report. We have the old one dated July 8, 2016, and there's this new revised one.
Okay. Alan Parsons would like to respond.
Excellent.
Through you, Madam Chair. Yes, staff is familiar with the revised version of the plan of subdivision, the plan itself. We have sat down with the applicant and discussed some changes to the plan that you see on the screen above you and on your individual screens to really improve it and to really have the applicant work in some requests for change that staff had asked for. While it was available through the applicant's presentation. We have not received it in a very formal manner. We do have to receive a formal submission from them, which provides more detail on the specifics of the character and the specific pieces of that plan. So we thought best that, given the detail that we do have with the current plan, we would present that current plan to you through staff's recommendation. The changes that were noted by way of the applicant's presentation are not deemed too substantial in our minds to really warrant a further public meeting at a later point in time. There are some modest modifications to the plan is all.
Oh, excellent. That's great. And I'm amazed that you were able to turn it around so quickly in such a short period of time from the conversion to now, even with the revision. Great job. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Nasir. Are there any members of the public who wish to make a presentation or delegate on this item this evening? Seeing none, I want to remind members. I'm sorry, was there some? Yep. Oh, come on down. Sign in. And then if you could come to the podium and state your name for the public record. I want to remind members of council we did receive a item of correspondence on this matter this evening. It's 13.2, so maybe we can bring that forward and receive it at the same. Yeah, if all those individuals who wish to speak on this evening, if you could line up, sign in, and then come to the podium. Hi, thank you. Can you state your name, please? And you'll have 5 minutes.
Massimo Lombardo. I just want to know why the original plan was dismissed with the semi-detaches, fully detached homes and the townhomes. And now you guys are going to decide to put buildings in an already busy area with a lot of high traffic. And I mean, I'm just one person, but I don't think it's a good idea as a resident of the area.
Staff may or may not be in a position to respond to you this evening, but any questions raised this evening or received by staff subsequent to this evening will be responded to in the staff report, and you'll be advised when that comes to council or to committee again, and you can have an opportunity to speak to it. So I don't know whether staff are prepared to respond to that this evening, or if that's something you would like to include in the staff recommendation report.
Through you, Madam Chair. So within the forthcoming recommendation report, we'll be speaking to really the history of the land uses, the specific product types that are proposed, and the rationale and really the appropriateness of those product types relative to other product types as well, residential product types.
Okay.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Hi and welcome.
Hi to everybody. So my name is Koinder Soman. I am from the 8770 the Gurur. I am very happy because I have seen the plan, the downstairs. I am very happy because it's a commercial and the residential. This project includes the commercial and also the residentials. So it will provide the employment to the pupils, and I'm very happy from this project, and I will support this project. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Respected Councillor.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening.
Yeah, you should turn that around.
I'm sorry. So looking forward to see that, the commercial and the residential mix and match together, like, you know, the traffic and all that. And as the population growing in this area, we really need to have those commercial doctor's office, pharmacies, and all that kind of stuff required to easy the life. So looking forward to see that.
Thank you.
Hello.
Hello.
Name's Sarvjit Basi, owner of Embassy Grand right there at that same corner. I think it's a great idea to have the residential and mixed employment use there. It'll be good for that corner. And yeah, instead of a gas station or some big factories, I'd rather see the buildings go up. Thank you.
Great, thank you for your comments. Hello, good evening.
Hello, good evening, everybody. My name is Mr. Calon. I looked at the both plan, the original plan and the revised plan. Kind of like a revised plan. They offering residential and also commercial use, also creating office building for employment use. We do have a business in that area, and we love to have more houses in that area, which will accommodate our business. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And all of your comments will be recorded as part of the public record. Thank you very much for taking the time to come out this evening. Would someone like to move receipt of the delegations? Councillor Gibson? All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. The next item, again, because there were so many people coming into the chambers after we convened the meeting this evening, is anybody here on item 4.5? It's the Cal Queen West developments on Queen Street West in Ward 5, consisting of 37 single detached homes. Does anybody come into the council chambers that wishes to speak on that item? Seeing none. We'll move to item 4.6. It's a report from to permit 4 single detached lots, Wolverley construction at the extension of Rainbrook Close in Ward 10. And I'll invite forward T. Secura. How close am I? Is it? All right. Welcome. And then this presentation will be followed by Anand Balram from the City of Brampton. Hi.
Yeah, sure. Madam Chair, members of committee, good evening. My name is TJ Sakura. I'm a planner with Design Plan Services. Tonight I'm here to speak to you about a draft plan of subdivision and rezoning application that is located at the corner of Countryside Drive and Mountain Ash. This parcel of land is a result of the realignment of Countryside Drive, and it will result in the extension of Rainbrook Close to its ultimate location. There is a rezoning application required to implement the policies of the official plan, and the rezoning proposes to extend the existing zoning to the south of this property onto the subject land. The total density of this property will be 26.7 units per net residential hectare, which falls within the permitted density of 12 to 30 units per net residential hectare. Therefore, no official plan amendment is required. This is a logical extension to the existing development on the land to the south and will be a complement to the area of the end of Rainbrook Close. Those are all my comments, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you.
Okay.
Anand Balram? Lots of new staff in the chambers this evening. Welcome.
Good evening, Madam Chair. Good evening, council members and members of the public. My name is Anand Balram. I'm the development planner responsible for managing the review of this application to permit 4 single detached lots, 6 residential reserve blocks, and an extension of Rainbrook Close. The location of the site is located on the south side of Countryside Drive, east of Mountain Ash Road, and west of Rainbrook Close. The site is approximately 0.49 hectares, that is 1.21 acres in size. The application is to amend the zoning bylaw and the proposed draft plan of subdivision to create 4 single detached residential dwellings, 6 residential reserve blocks that are intended to be developed in conjunction with the corresponding reserve blocks on the abutting registered plan to the south, an extension of Rainbrook Close, which is required to facilitate the development. With regards to our planning documents here at the city, the subject lands are designated residential on Schedule A, general land use designations within the City of Brampton's official plan. An amendment to the official plan is not required. With regards to the secondary plan, the subject site is designated as low-density residential in the Sandringham, Wellington Secondary Plan Area, that is Secondary Plan Area 28. The proposal is consistent with this designation, and as a result, an amendment to the secondary plan is not required. With regards to zoning, the subject site is designated agricultural. A zoning bylaw amendment is necessary to permit the proposed residential uses. Through the processing of this application, there have been no discernible issues that have been raised to date. It's a fairly simple one. And to conclude, I will continue to process this application and will be considering all comments received from the public and technical experts. At a future time, I will be preparing a recommendation report for consideration of the Planning and Development Services Committee and Council. The report will include a discussion on any comments or questions that have been received from the public. All members of the public that provide their contact information on this application will be advised when a future recommendation report will be presented. With that, I conclude. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Is anybody in attendance that wishes to present on this evening? Seeing none, would someone like to move receipt of the staff presentation? Councillor Willens, all those in favor? That's carried. The next item on the agenda is item 4.7. It is an information report on the city-initiated amendments to the official plan and parkland dedication bylaw. There is a recommendation in the report. Moved by Councillor Willens.
Recommendation 3 is
Yep. Everybody understands what the recommendation report is before us? Moved by Councillor Willens. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. That concludes this evening the statutory public meeting portion of the agenda. We'll move now down to delegations. And the first delegation is Andre LeBlanc, followed by Lorraine Hattelt, and it is on recommendation report 7.1, which Councillor Bowman's going to bring forward. Correct? Okay. And you're on the board to speak following the delegations. Andre. Welcome this evening. You'll have 5 minutes to make your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you for having us. My name is Andre LeBlanc. I'm the operations manager for Melbourne. We manage that condominium corporation located at 1 and 280 Townhouse Crescent. We also manage a number of properties in Brampton for many years, about 45 years or so. This particular property is a very long-standing client of ours, and we're very integrated within that community, so we have quite a pulse on what our residential owners wish and bring forward. Generally, as a company, we stay out of issues beyond the boundaries of our property. That's not generally within the scope of our management agreement. Having said that, a number of owners, a number of people within this community have made their views very strongly known to us, and it's something that we believe will have a major effect on this condominium. So some of the concerns that we had is initially the corporation was not notified of this change. We actually only became aware of a resident that had forwarded to our office. The address of service for the condominium is our office, and we were not notified. So once we were notified, we did take the time to notify our residents and make them aware of the process. But generally, like I said, most of the concerns that the corporation has and the residents have is not over new development. It is overdue in the area. I think it can have a big improvement, but we have a number of logistical issues in our complex, specifically related to people cutting through, trespassing with vehicles. And despite the best efforts, speed bumps, other measures that have been taken, it just continues to get worse each year. We're currently in the process of working with the residential rental buildings on either side of us, which we share that roadway with. But it's the view that this is just going to continue to get worse, given the trucks that are anticipated, given the amount of trucks that are anticipated. People will continue to try to find other courses, which inevitably will drive them through our property, people who are trying to miss the traffic on Kennedy Road. Another specific concern is The residents, there's several blocks that face directly onto Kennedy, and a number of concerns have been brought forward related to the lights, traffic, noise, and there currently is no fence or wall or anything there, and so there's a couple of thought processes. One is, well, okay, we'll maybe consider a wall or something that would go up there, but then that also will take away from the community, take away from the property, sort of box it in, which could have an effect on their values. But more importantly, if that's left to something for the property to do, there isn't the budget, there isn't the funds in there. It's a nonprofit condominium. They don't have the operating funds for this. This is not something that would qualify as a capital expense in accordance with the Condominium Act. So what that would likely result is it's something that the condominium would be forced into a special assessment, which is levying potentially thousands of dollars to the unit owners to build a wall that they may not even be able to do given the requirements of the Act and the voting processes that are required under our bylaws and under the Condo Act. So that's the main concerns we have from a management side, is just the impact it is going to have on a good number of the complex, a good portion of it, and the traffic specifically, and the vehicle traffic. There are times when we're there that it literally takes us an hour and a half to get to the property currently, and that's just going to get worse with the volume of trucks that are anticipated and that were told to us. So again, a number of, like I did want to say, is a number of residents have expressed the concerns to management. They're not necessarily here because they don't necessarily understand the process. They think the condo corporation will take care of it, which we are on their behalf. And so, but I personally, I'm the operations manager. Our property manager, I know, has taken the several calls. Because I've been more involved in this, I've taken probably 25, 30 calls from our residents. So there is quite an interest in this, and so it is something that's very important to our residents and therefore very important to us. But I'll leave off through our senior team at our company. We don't generally come out to these meetings. We specifically are taking an interest in this because this is going to have such a detrimental effect to our client, which is the condominium. And so that's the end of my comments.
Thank you very much, Andre. Welcome, Lorraine.
Hi. Lorraine Natal, Madam Chair, council members. I'm a resident of Townhouse Crescent. I'm a resident of Brampton since 1969, and I'm imploring you to take a look at the use of Kennedy Road South and not be very short-sighted and allow this to go through. We are mortgaging our future by allowing this to go through. I will be very affected by this if it goes through. The traffic that goes up and down Kennedy Road is very immense, and trying to get north on Kennedy Road from 3 o'clock on in the evening and in the mornings going south is very, very thick. It takes you a long time to get north and south, and that would only make it worse. When I originally came to the planning meeting, they estimated 500 trucks. If you've ever been over to Maritime, Ontario on Queen Street east of Airport Road, you'll see the size of that plant and the trucks and the truck parking that is there, and that will be the same size. We're mortgaging our LRT, we're mortgaging our transit system, we're being very short-sighted. As a resident of Peel Village, I see the constant traffic going through the Bartley Bull area. It's only going to get worse. It was into some of the schools. The principals are very, very worried. It's a 40-kilometer zone, and people are just flying by. How are we going to get our kids to school? How are we going to have a good quality of life? You have a proposal of 500 trucks a day to be idling past a schoolyard, past high schools. There's 6 schools in Peel Village that will be directly affected. Not only the garbage and the great things that trucking industry brings in. I'm not opposed to jobs. Get that straight. I'm not opposed to the jobs, but we do have the Canadian Tire warehouses leaving on Melanie and Steeles. There's a place for it. There's places for it up at Airport Road, just north of Queen. There are lots of places for this. It's already zoned, already there. They don't have to be where it's going to directly affect thousands of residents. So in conclusion, we have a petition put together. We've got a large number of names, and it's growing, and so we'll look forward to the next step, and hope that you'll keep the zoning the same. Thank you.
Lorraine, if I could, there's been no petition received by the clerk's office.
Okay.
I've
got part of it now, so if you want some of it tonight. I know that some of the residents of Townhouse Crescent have also emailed, phoned, sent things in, so they should be on here as well.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
If you have something tonight to leave with the clerk,
Yep.
that would be great.
Sure, okay. And then I can forward the rest? Yeah, okay, thanks.
Perfect, thank you. Someone like to move receipt of the delegation, unless these are questions of clarification for the delegations, Councillor Miles? Councillor Bowman? No. Okay.
Can we also speak on this? I didn't realize you weren't going to open it for...
This is not part of the statutory public meeting portion of it. If it's council's will, or committee's will, we can open up the agenda to add delegations this evening, Mr. Clerk? Okay. Councillor, are you going to move adding, because I'll need a member of council to move that this evening. Councillor Bowman, I'd like to move that we add, how many, just one? Two? Two more delegations this evening? Yep, we don't need a seconder, Councillor Miles, but I'm sure you will. Okay. All in favor of adding delegations this evening? That's carried, thank you. So if you could, I'll get you to sign in and then come to the podium and state your name for the record, please. Hello and welcome.
Thank you. Sorry, I'm not familiar with any of this at all. But
that's okay.
I appreciate you taking our time to hear us. I'm also a resident of Townhouse Crescent. I'm in fact one of the homeowners directly across from this proposed development, and I want to add that personal voice of understanding how this is going to impact us directly. Yes, we need jobs, but there is a place for the type of proposal that they're saying, a warehouse and a truck depot with up to 500 trucks coming right in front of my home, and I have a chain link fence that blocks that. So noise is an issue. Air quality is an issue, not only for myself, but the greater area around there. I didn't believe that I was going to be purchasing a home in an area that would be across from, for lack of a better word, an industrial area. And it feels like that's what the move is going to be moving towards. Right now, that building, I understand, is not occupied or not functional. And it's actually become a nesting area for some Canadian geese. And so the proposal to move that building forward, to tear it down and to build parking lots and have so many trucks go in, is going to disturb that wildlife landing place where there are nests going as well as the impact on the schools. There's a school very close to where the proposed trucks will be coming through, and there is a community center, Ken Giles, there as well. So my other concern is for our children walking on these streets and increasing the traffic. So it is a residential area. We shouldn't be moving it into an industrial area, as was mentioned before from one of my neighbors. There's a place for that, and Kennedy Road across from Townhouse Crescent is not the place for it. Thank you.
Do we have one? Okay. Thank you. Can I ask you to tell us what your name is, please?
Yes, my name is Deborah Miller, and I'm one of the owners of Townhouse Crescent 2. I'm at 110 Townhouse Crescent. I recently purchased the home around 2014, and I loved the area. The first thing I noticed when I was in the area was that there was tons of children. And I said to myself, wow, I feel like I'm safe here. So safe, because this is so nice, seeing children. Anyway, the reason I'm opposed to a lot of the trucks coming in, there's a lot of traffic congestion in that area to begin with. So adding more to it is just going to make things even more complicated. The children, I'm concerned for them because I see a lot of the times when I'm walking around the neighborhood with my dogs, I see the children with older children being picked up. So if they have like a brother or sister and they coming across the street to catch the bus, this would be like a safety concern, a major safety concern. And there's a lot of kids in this neighborhood. The other thing I'm walking my dogs too, and I find it really nice to be able to walk around the area with my dogs. However, there are the odd trucks that come in and just, freak my dogs out. And it's a bit concerning. I can't imagine what it's going to be like with 500 more of those trucks coming in. The other thing I want to mention too is the bus route is going to have to probably change. Everything will be changed around that area so drastically because of the trucks impacting the area. The other thing, as a single mom trying to raise 2 children, I don't need to have any more costs dumped upon me. Where it concerns, the corporation right now is trying to lower the costs and keep everybody at, so that we don't have to spend here, spend there, spend everywhere. And I think they're trying to do a good job at that. Having this dumped on me now is going to really put me out. I'm sure there's a lot of single parents in there too, trying to hold the fort for their kids. And, we're just trying to live and hold the fort. So please take this into consideration.
Thank you, Deborah. Councillor Bowman, would you like to move proceed of the next the 2 added delegations? And Councillor Sprovier, is yours a question of clarification of the delegation or on the report? On the report. Thank you very much for joining us this evening. Members of committee, the next report is 7.1. Councillor Bowman.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. It's an interesting report. We've known about it for a little while anyways, and I've had a chance to speak on a few occasions to the planners, to the owners. In fact, I spoke to them last Friday on this issue as well. There's a number of questions that I had that we met with Alan and our new chair of planning last week, and we spoke to the people who did the traffic study. I had some questions of the Peel region who did the traffic study, and they weren't really answered to my satisfaction. And that question was, the traffic studies that were done, that were accepted by planning, were based on the numbers that the owner provided to them for what was going into that building. And I said to them, what if the numbers increase? And there was no answer. There was no answer about whether that would affect the plan, whether it would affect anything, whether it would affect whether we approved this or not. I also asked them if they had ever been on Rambler Boulevard or Rambler Drive at 8 o'clock in the morning. There will be, at maximum, during the busy time, on average, 38 trucks at the busiest hour leaving that facility using the single light at Rambler and Kennedy. So when you take into account that you're going to have 38 trucks, transport trucks, coming out of that facility in a 1 hour period, the busiest period, versus all the cars dropping kids off at school, going out of Peel Village, trying to get onto Kennedy Road to get to their jobs, something just does not give. I mean, if you figure it out, it's a truck every 2 minutes running through that stoplight, and that traffic sometimes gets built up almost right around Bartley Bull. So that is a concern I had. I put the motion forward a year and a half ago to have the speed limit reduced on Bartley Bull in areas from 50 to 40, and that was accepted. Council approved that. Thank you very much. That's recently been done. But more and more and more and more traffic is being cut through from Kennedy Road and Steeles Avenue through Orchard and Rambler. The speed limit is certainly not being obeyed around Bartley Bull. There are 4 public and elementary schools on Bartley Bull, which are going to be affected. I think that putting another huge number of trucks is going to increase the number of cars that are cutting through Bartley Bull Parkway, cutting through the school zones, especially during the busiest times. Kennedy and Steeles, most people already realize, is probably one of the most accident-prone areas in Brampton. I mean, adding this amount of traffic to the Kennedy and Steeles areas is not going to improve the traffic flow nor the number of accidents that happen at that intersection. My question to you, Mr. Commissioner, we had, I guess about 2 weeks ago, an application come forward, and we deferred it based on looking at the plan for this area, moving ahead 5-10 years, and asking ourselves, is this the highest and best possible use for this particular location? And so I've got to ask you as well, is this the highest and best possible use looking forward on a big master plan for that area?
So if I may, through you, Chair, I think given the changing nature of Kennedy Road over time, it's probably not the ideal outcome that people would like to see. However, it was permitted under the zoning or the designation in place at the time. So the application before us is a rezoning application to look at the number of bays and not necessarily the use. And that was a settlement discussion with the OMB from a number of years back.
Okay. So you're not saying it's not the highest and best possible use, but you're sort of indicating that there could be other best possible uses for it in the future.
Well, there's a few conflicting things about Kennedy Road. Obviously, it is a truck route under the regional road network. However, it's being contemplated for things like LRT, redevelopment of the entire strip. So there's lots that would have to be contemplated. But again, what we're looking at today is the rezoning for the number of bays.
Right. And for anybody who doesn't know how many the rezoning application, we're looking at moving this from the 14 approved bays to 92 bays and further parking for 40 transports in behind there, plus another 256 parking spots out front. So this is no minor change. This is huge. I've spoken to a lot of residents who live in Peel Village, residents who live in Townhouse Crescent, even residents that live outside Peel Village and along Steeles as far as McMurchie, who recognize the impact that this is going to have. And so, I mean, I spoke to the proponents on Friday, and I said I would wait to hear. I would look at all the notes. I would go back and read everything I have, and I've done that. And I can't support this based on what I've heard and based on the residents I've spoken to. And I would like to put a motion on the floor that we do not accept the change to the amending bylaw.
So are you, I guess the appropriate way to do that, Mr. Clerk, would be to change number 2, that this application to amend the zoning bylaw be refused? Okay. We have a number of speakers.
Yep. I'm free to hear the other speakers.
Okay. Councillor Miles?
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I absolutely support Councillor Bowman's resolution. I mean, we've talked about an image for this corridor for quite some time now. A number of years ago, in fact, we put a holding pattern on the stretch of Kennedy Road from, I don't know if it was from Queen Street right down to Steeles, but certainly from about Centre Street, Clarence down. And I mean, my vision for this corridor is I mean, we had an application not too long ago from Rice Development Group. We approved recommendations for a couple of condominiums, high-rise condominiums in there. And I think really what we should be looking at is, and even if it means that the municipality has to start taking some initiative to rezone some of these properties, is we should be looking at creating a vibrant corridor with mixed use along that corridor, not industrial commercial. So I don't support it. If you look how close we are to the work that we're doing around our health sciences cluster, it's just a few blocks up. So this Kennedy Road will be a major transportation corridor for the health sciences cluster as well. So I just don't think 500 trucks in that area is an appropriate use. I understand that the zoning is an application to increase the bays. So if what we have to do first is not increase the number of bays that are allowed and the density of if it's a logistics business, then I think we just don't support the application. And then maybe we need to look at the corridor as a special study area quickly and determine what is the vision for that corridor. Because I think it's, in all fairness to the applicants, the municipality hasn't completed that work, and we need to do it so that when applicants do take a look at where if they're coming in to the city to look at bringing business, which is really important, we need to be prepared as a municipality to be able to say this is where you should be looking. So I do support Councillor Bowman's motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mouse. Councillor Sprovieri.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I also feel along the same lines as Councillor Bowman and Miles. I feel that introducing this number of trucks into this area will pretty well discourage the development of the vision that the city has developed for this area. And as it stands now, we have to really be careful what we allow, because any negative uses that will discourage other more appropriate uses, appropriate according to our vision, will discourage them from coming in. So I don't believe that it's a wise thing to do at this time or any time to allow logistics operations in an area where we're hoping to attract some much better uses. And so that really concerns me, that this kind of use will just discourage the people from coming into the area to achieve the vision that we have envisioned. So I cannot support it either. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sprovieri. Councillor Palashi.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This portion of Kennedy Road, that's a regional portion, is it not?
Oh, go ahead. That's correct. Through you, Chair. Yes.
And does this have to go to the region for approval? And what does the region say about the increase in trucks? They're here if you don't know. Behind you.
Being a regional road, the traffic study would be submitted through to the region's traffic department, which would review that and assess the capacity of the road network to handle the turning movements. What we've understood in conversations with staff, that the number of bays is not necessarily a strong driver of the truck traffic. It's more tied to the GFA, which is already established.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm just looking at my phone here with satellite image, because the other image is regardless. Is there no possible way that we can try and enter into some kind of agreement with the neighbor to the south and try and move the truck traffic behind that neighbor to Resolution Drive? Or was there discussions with regard to that?
Through you, Madam Chair, the staff is not familiar with any discussions or contemplation that the applicant might have put toward the that tack, that strategy. We cannot comment on really to what degree the owner would have looked at that. All we have really received from the applicant is their strategy to put the trucks out through to Kennedy Road by way of a southerly access. That would be just located immediately across from Rambler Drive.
Okay, so they have two accesses now? Oh, sorry, they have two accesses now onto Kennedy?
That is correct. Through you, Madam Chair. There are two accesses that are on the property at this point in time, and it is proposed that there would be two accesses proposed that with their ultimate development as identified within the report as well. The northerly access, though, would be limited to just car trips as recommended in the report in order to limit noise emanating from the site, and it would be the southerly access that would accommodate 100% of the truck traffic.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Councillor Bowman has amended the motion. Councillor Bowman, you back on the board?
Yes. Am I live? Yep. Okay. And further to what Councillor Miles has said about Kennedy Road being designated as a special policy area for review, I would like to add that to the motion if we can.
Okay. I'm not sure what the correct language is on that.
Well, the motion be that the application be denied and that Kennedy Road be designated as special policy area for review by staff. Put on holding.
We have already had two interim control bylaws, I believe, over the years on Kennedy Road South. And Councillor Miles, can I perhaps, and Councillor Bowman, perhaps a better approach rather than us trying to make something up that may not be one of the tools in the toolbox that our planning department would either recommend or have access to. Can we ask that perhaps we refer to staff the issue of how do we get to what it is you are proposing, and that is to essentially put it in a holding pattern, not using an interim control bylaw, but perhaps some other measure that might be more appropriate.
I'm fine.
Whatever that language might look like, Mr. Clerk. So I don't want to make something up here that staff can't actually deliver on. That might not be the best approach. So ask that we refuse the application before us and that staff be requested to bring forward a recommendation on how best to achieve the highest and best use for Kennedy Road South. I don't know what.
Madam Chair, if I may, this is a site-specific application, and in my view, committee shouldn't be making policy for a site-specific application. If committee wishes to add a new business item and speak to that, that's something that could be appropriate for the committee. I also want to point out and advise committee that under the Planning Act, as I understand it, if committee refuses, essentially if council refuses an application, they must set out the reasons for the application, for the refusal. And that's required under the Planning Act. So possibly the recommendations listening from what committee has just debated, that the application to amend the zoning bylaw be refused for the following reasons: concerns related to traffic and the intensified industrial use of this, and the surrounding neighborhood, including pedestrian safety, noise, and air quality.
Sure.
If we have to give reasons? Is that your recommendation, City Solicitor?
Through you, Madam Chair, absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you.
So just before we call the vote, I do want to, I have two other speakers. Councillor Dillon.
For clarification, I've pretty much confirmed it in reading this, but the owner, the applicant is also the owner of the land, is that correct, of the warehouse?
Yes, through Madam Chair. The applicant is Wham Kennedy Road LP, also known as One Properties, and we've received the application through Corsiac Urban Planning, which is the agent for the owner.
Are there any alternatives that they could have if this was to be refused? Would the city work with them?
If I may, I guess if the council or the committee was to refuse the application, the next step of the applicant could be to go to site plan application process with the fewer number of bay doors that are currently permitted in the zoning bylaw.
It's always a touchy subject, I guess, when you have so many houses that are nearby. And I do appreciate Councillor Bowman's and Councillor Miles' support of it. But I'm just wondering where would we draw the line in terms of development in the city? If we stop it here, where do they go? And what do we do specifically with this area that's sitting vacant? So, I've been a big proponent of development of bringing business here. So, again, it is a touchy subject, but I would have to support the applicant.
Okay. I just want to make some comments before I call the vote. I want to recognize the efforts of staff, both in planning and economic development, and Councillor Bowman. I know that there's been a number of meetings set up to talk about the future of Kennedy Road with the applicant, and I don't want anybody to leave here thinking that staff, we're not listening to the community. Staff have a box that they have to operate in, and that is the current, I guess, legislative authority of that, the zoning on that property. And so, staff are restricted in terms of the recommendations that they have to bring forward. They have to operate within that box. And that's why it comes before committee, and we are the ultimate decision makers on that. But I do think that a lot of time and effort was spent with the applicant to talk and explore what some of the other opportunities might be for that site other than this. So, a recorded vote. Councillor Bowman has called a recorded vote. Mr. Clerk.
So recorded vote's been requested on Councillor Bowman's motion, which is two parts: to receive the staff report and that the application to amend the zoning bylaw be refused for the following reasons: concerns related to traffic and the intensified industrial use on the surrounding residential neighborhood, including pedestrian safety, noise, and air quality. All in favor of the motion, please stand to be counted. Showing in favor of the motion is Mayor Jeffrey, Councillor Miles, Councillor Fortini, Councillor Bowman, Chair Moore, Councillor Sprovieri, Councillor Palesh, Councillor Willens, and Councillor Gibson. All opposed to the motion, please stand to be counted. Showing opposed is Councillor Dillon. Madam Chair, that motion carries 9-1.
Thank you very much. On the second part of the motion, or what you were proposing, Councillor Bowman and Councillor Miles, can I suggest that perhaps you put some work with staff to, I think they understand what it is you'd like to achieve or undertake on Kennedy Road South, so maybe work with them on some language for either the next planning committee or the appropriate venue for that. Okay, thank you. Oh, we've received the petition moved by Councillor Fortini. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you very much, and thank you for coming out this evening. The next item on the agenda is delegations from Robert Walters from PMG Planning and Zahir Bacchus. And now I have three individuals, Zahir Bacchus and Imam and Amjad Iqbal, to speak on the Chinguzi Farms Limited to create 15 single detached lots on a public road, southwest corner of Damaris Drive and Great Lakes Drive in Ward 9. So our first delegate this evening is Robert Walters from PMG. Thank you and welcome.
Madam Chair, I represent the applicant, PMG Planning Consultants, and I've gone over the staff report and the recommendations with our client. We support the recommendations. We're pleased to answer any questions.
Okay. Are there any questions, Councillor Dillon? Are your questions of the delegate or on report 7.2? Okay. Thank you. Our next delegates, if you'd like to come forward, Zahir Bacchus. Amjad, are you going to be speaking this evening as well? Okay. I'm sorry, and I was reading this wrong.
It's okay. Good evening, Madam Speaker, councillors, Mayor Jeffrey and staff, as well as the attendees. I'll be speaking about 72.-9, which is the rezoning of the area at Great Lakes Drive south of the southwest corner of Damaris and Great Lakes Drive for family housing. It is zoned currently as institutional. And so I would like to make some say a few things about why I disagree with the rezoning to residential in the area. Great Lakes Drive, if you've ever been on it, is a very important street. It's an important street because it contains a lot of schools. It contains HB Harith Braith School, it contains Great Lakes Public School, and it contains a Catholic school on the west corner by Salewin. The population of those schools is over 2,400 children. It's mainly residential. Down the street, you have the mall at the corner of Bovaird and Great Lakes Drive. What we've been seeing, and I'm the imam of the mosque on the street. There's a mosque. Our congregation is about 1,500 people. So the street can become quite congested, especially with the three schools. 200 meters from each other. And the problem that exists on the street is where the residential areas are, that there is a lot of children that cross the street not at proper places. There is, around the schools, one traffic light at Salewin. There's nothing at Damaris. There is a new residential development that is occurring right now that has two streets, Cookview and Locarno Street. That is they will empty into Great Lakes because they back onto the Highway 410. So they necessarily have to come onto Great Lakes. That residential area right now that's being developed and almost completed will increase the residents of that street by 200. It's 200 residences, 200 houses, which increases it manifoldly to a lot more people coming onto the Great Lakes Drive. If anyone has ever driven down Great Lakes Drive, and I live there and I work there in the mosque, in the morning between 8 o'clock and 9:30, you cannot get through that street. You're avoiding cars, turning, U-turning, and you're avoiding, more significantly, young people. You're trying to avoid children running across the street to get to the high school, and parents taking their children across the street. Now, there are those who do cross at Salewin to get to the Great Lakes schools, but as far as the high school is, there is no specific traffic light, crosswalk, stop sign in the area. So the majority of the kids, as the school board has put on, and I have the Peel board listing here of Great Lakes Public School, the number of kids that are bused to that school, which has 1,200 kids, is 56. There's only 56 kids bused to the school from Great Lakes Drive there on the Peel site. In Harold Brayworth Secondary School, the number of kids that are bused are 12. It's only 12 kids. They have a population of 1,400 kids. It's over 1,000 kids. The majority are dropped off by their parents. The issue is daytime, morning and afternoon. You got them? Morning and afternoon. This is the problem. Now, when traffic study was done, I believe the traffic study was done without the full occupancy of the new residential areas. It was done before the proper traffic study can be done with the number of residents that are coming onto the Great Lakes Drive street, as well as there being over 1,200, as well as there being over a significant 200 units. What's accounted in the units is specifically because that developer actually finishes basements. That specific developers, and I live in one of their houses, they actually finish their basements. And so not only do you have 200 residences, but you're having it double because they're going to be renting their basements. And so what you're having is you're not accounting just for a single house with a single family. You're accounting for multiple families within the same residence and within the same house, which triples or quadruples the number of cars on that street on Great Lakes Drive. It quadruples it. Being that these development on, as we can see on the map 7.2-9, there's no way out of this through the back end because it backs onto to Highway 410. It backs onto Highway 410. And so there has been chaos. I live on the street. I have kids there. I take them to the school there. A lot of our residents also understand this. We have one of our elders who tried to cross the street. He was hit 8 months ago. He's here with us. And so we have, at the end of that street of Great Lakes Drive and Sandalwood, we actually have an old age residence also. And a lot of them go for walking on that street.
Imam
It is
Marcus,
chaotic, yes.
I don't want to be disrespectful, but
Yeah.
You had a 5-minute limit,
Okay.
and you're at 6 minutes and 12 seconds.
We like to break our fast too.
Councillor Dillon is moving that you have an extension of time. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Do I continue? Okay. Thank you for the extension. So what I'm proposing is, it's about the safety of the children. That's my concern. My concern is the safety of the children. It's either you put stop signs at every 200 meters, which, are you willing to do that? Creates more chaos. Or you put traffic signs, or you put crosswalk, or you widen the street. In which case, clears up the congestion, if at any. My concern is over the safety of the children. I've seen the congestion, even night school. When the high school has night school, it is chaotic. Over the last 8 months, 8 months roughly, I've seen Peel Regional Police actually come and control traffic that night. I've actually seen that Peel Regional Police come and control traffic. However, it only controlled traffic to a certain extent. There are people who park all along the street, dropping off their kids, waiting for their kids dashing in and out between the cars, as I'm guilty of doing when I was growing up, dashing in and between the cars. It is a danger. Now, we're talking about, 15 units. That's what we're talking about. We're talking about 15 units. So why am I up here talking about 15 units? Because 15 units is not 15 families. Double it. And it's double the cars or triple the cars. The main, and it will all come into Damaris, which then empties into Great Lakes Drive, which will then create more traffic. It will create more traffic, and it will create an unsafe area for the children who are already unsafe when they go onto the streets, going to their schools and back. So, thank you. I hope that the councillors reconsider the rezoning application and really consider the children and that road and the congestion that it's causing for the safety of the residents in the area. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Amjad, did you wish to speak this evening as well? You are a listed delegate.
Amjad Iqbal. I just would like to add the safety of the residents. 8 o'clock in the morning, if we have a fire in the area or there is a heart attack, ambulance can't go through, the fire truck can't go through. That's the situation we are living in. I live east side of the Great Lakes, and it's the same situation. Sailwind is blocked, Canada Goose is blocked, when there are 800 kids are being dropped off. So all we are requesting not to add any more residents in the area. And if the Great Lakes can be widened, that might, solve the issue. That's what I thought. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Dillon, you're the first speaker. Would you like to move receipt of the delegations this evening? Thank you. All those in favor? That's carried.
Sorry, can I go ahead?
Yes, you can.
Question for staff. When was the traffic study done, and does the traffic study take into account the new development in front of Harold Brathwaite Secondary School? Because from what I don't believe they're all occupied yet, those houses.
So through you, Madam Chair, this application doesn't have a traffic study that was just received with it, given the fact that the residential uses that were contemplated when the subdivision was first developed, the larger lands were first developed, And when the site was zoned with a dual purpose for both residential or for the place of worship on the site, it was considered at that point in time. It would have been looked at through the traffic study done then. That study was approved by staff. The plan of subdivision was registered, understanding that the traffic was all worked out in an appropriate way. At this point in time, with this application in front of us, it's not a rezoning application to permit the use. That's already permitted now with the current as of right permissions, but it is rather just the plan of subdivision to create the lots. And in that respect, the requisite amount of time between the larger plan of subdivision having been registered and this point in time, a 3-year period for us to wait to be able to develop the residential uses for the owner to come forward with that proposal, that's occurred. So really, it was already looked at previously through the older plan of subdivision. It was always contemplated that this use would be either that place of worship or the 15 lots as proposed here. And staff, in speaking with traffic staff on this application in particular, they've confirmed that there is no concern that they have at all, that the amount of traffic that would be generated by way of these 15 lots is really inconsequential for them. What it does work out to, that they've advised, is during the peak period, which would be in mornings, it would be 11 trips per that peak morning hour. So it would be 1 trip per 5 minutes or so.
So what year was the decision made? I guess you said that it wasn't required to have the traffic study per se for this particular development, or even the larger development, like you said. But what year was this all finalized?
So I can advise through you, Madam Chair, that the plan of subdivision was registered in 2013. So it's been 3 years from that point that really had to be really waited on until this property could be proposed for residential development, to ensure that there is an opportunity for a place of worship organization to come forward to potentially purchase this site. So the last phase of registration was in 2013.
So there's been questions or concerns about the fact that they tried to reach out, I guess, and there were not a lot of phone calls coming back in terms of purchasing the land. And I've seen this before with these 3-year zonings for place of worship. But regardless, I think a lot has changed since then. Even if you talk about the greater area, 410's been widened. If you take, there's going to be a new development at Rosedale as well. And so this is an area I drive through quite frequently to drop my kids off at my mother-in-law's house. So I've been part of the traffic chaos, you could say. So I'm not sure when everything was planned, if they took into account that we'd have a widened 410, we'd have development in the surrounding areas, because it is truly chaos around at certain times of day. So I would like the city to do its due diligence. I'd like the applicant to have the due diligence, and I think the residents deserve it as well. If we refer this back to staff, and what we do is ask for a traffic study to take place, I guess what it will do is it'll give the residents, I guess, the full breadth of what's going on, and give them the full knowledge, and I guess it'll take any questions away from them as to what's going on in the area. Like I said, there's so much going on around there. You're in between 2 highways exits. You're near a major mall in Brampton. You're near a high school. You're near 2 elementary schools. You got a old age residence there, and you got hundreds of new houses that are going to be occupied very soon. So I think even in the case of this smaller area, I think it serves the greater area a lot as well, if we have a little bit more knowledge of what's going on exactly in this street in particular. So I'd like to move that motion.
You're moving a deferral motion for a traffic study?
Is it a deferral or referral?
First of all, I'd like staff to speak to this. This is not a rezoning application. The applicant or the owner of this property, as of right, can build houses. So we're not dealing with a rezoning application where the applicant is attempting to to bring forward an application that's doing something that they are not permitted to do. It is dual zone for a place of worship or residential homes. At this point, it is a plan of subdivision to look at whether or not the application as proposed fits in with the neighborhood and is something that can be supported by staff.
Right. And what I'm trying to say is that I think a lot of the residents have indicated it might not fit in the neighborhood. I don't think they're totally against it thus far, but they have concerns about some of the traffic issues there. And if we move it back to staff, because we're making a decision on it today, and I think for our due diligence that we need to know the full breadth of what the traffic is there. So hence why I asked Mr. Clerk if we could refer it back, try to get a little bit more information on the traffic study, because there's a lot that's happened since 2013 or just before that when this plan was initiated.
Okay. So it's a motion, you're referring the recommendation report back to staff.
Report back to staff and to come back with a thorough traffic study of the area.
So through you, Madam Chair, I think it needs to be clarified in the referral motion then who's actually doing the traffic study. Is it the applicant or is it the city?
Well, the city doesn't generally do the traffic studies on behalf of the applicant.
I think the applicant should do the study.
Okay, so Councillor Dillon has moved a referral back to staff. A referral motion is debatable. Councillor Sprovieri.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair, and thank the delegations for raising the issue about how busy the road is, and I can attest to that. Because of the amount of there's one high school and two elementary school, plus on Fridays they have the prayers at the mosque, so it can become quite hectic. And I've been in the road myself a number of times, and I've seen how busy it does become at certain times. I can't even remember whether it's a 4-lane road or a 2-lane road, or whether it's been reduced to 2 lanes for traffic calming. I don't recall that, but certainly there is a traffic issue there. Is it different than other schools? Well, most other streets usually have one school in close proximity. This one has 3, and it is a busy place. What I was thinking of was whether we, and I know that was it last week or 2 weeks ago, we've had a request from residents from the area, I think a Sailwind, asking for traffic signals to be looked at by the traffic department. So the area residents are already have made that request. So what I would like to see is whether traffic signals would be appropriate either at Sailwind or at Dumaris. And as part of this exercise, whether it goes to a traffic study or whether, depending on what committee approves the study request, but at the least they should be looked at. Having some traffic, either one or the other intersection, may help. It may make it worse. I don't know. And maybe that it would be a good idea to get a good sense to have this looked at, whether it's in-house or whether we ask the developer to get a consultant to look at it. But it probably should be looked at because it is a busy stretch of road, and I know it's only 15 homes, but there's a lot more homes that are going to be occupied just up the road. They're not occupied yet; they're under construction, so the traffic will only increase, and so perhaps it would be a good idea to have the traffic study looked at. Perhaps staff can comment if they like, Madam Chair.
I think Alan Parsons would like to comment.
Sure.
And thank you, Madam Chair. Just really only to say, though, that my understanding is that there is a set of signalized lights at the intersection of Sailwind Road and Great Lakes Drive currently, but not at the intersection at Damaris and Great Lakes Drive.
Councillor Scovier?
Okay, through the chair, I was hoping you'd comment about having a traffic looked at, to see whether anything else can be done to improve what's there now.
Perhaps what I can offer through you, Madam Chair, if it pleases the committee, and if it's ultimately decided by committee that it's a necessary item for your purposes, that staff could report back with an analysis on really the operations of the site currently, maybe in advance of having a requirement for a traffic study completed. I can offer now that we've heard from our traffic staff already, and they have identified that the amount of traffic that would be generated by the 15 homes is inconsequential in their minds, and it does work out to one trip every 5 minutes during that peak period. But if it is that committee wants more information received about the peak periods, staff could seek that and put together some information for committee's purposes. But really, at this point in time, I would recommend that just the considerations and recommendations of the report together stand. But if it does give committee comfort in having some additional information, that's what you're going to be really needing, then we could put that together.
Well, Madam Chair, I appreciate that, because I think it's more putting the residents' minds at ease. Most of the people who have here that are attending live in the area, and normally they wouldn't be taking a whole evening off just to come and sit here unless there was a legitimate concern for the area. So I think we need to have it looked at somewhere, one way or another. It should be, whether it be staff or whether it be a traffic study by the consultants, one or the other. I would support, Madam Chair. Thank
So
you.
you're supporting a referral, and if I understand, staff are going to get additional comments from traffic, our traffic division, in order to perhaps...
He's asking, the council is moving a traffic study, and that's what the motion's on the floor. So I'm supporting something to do with the traffic,
Okay.
to look at the traffic.
Thank you. Councillor Gibson. On referral back to staff
Thank
for
you.
traffic study.
Yeah, I'm just, I'm trying to think about what we're trying to accomplish here, and speaking to the referral, I think a referral could make things a heck of a lot worse. Correct me if I'm wrong, staff, that when all these houses were built in this area, this property was shown as the use could be a place of worship or residential uses, correct? That's what would have been shown on the maps.
That's correct. To you, Madam Chair. The site is currently zoned for either the place of worship or the residential uses. Both are permitted as of right.
Okay, so everybody who bought in that area would have known that. If we were to refer this off, if we were to delay this any longer, it's been 3 years that we've had to wait, and the applicants had to wait to try to get somebody to put either place of worship in there, which I think a place of worship on this site would make it a heck of a lot worse for traffic. A heck of a lot worse. We've got 15 units here. If I was the applicant and staff delayed me anymore, or council delayed me anymore, I'd go back to the drawing board and bring in an application for townhouses or something a little more denser in here. So I think 15 units, and we can't make decisions on speculation on whether or not there are going to be more families living in each unit. We just can't do that. 15 units is about the least, I think, amount of traffic you're going to get in this area, considering what else you could have. So as much as I'd like to support the people in the audience, I think you're getting a pretty good deal here if your just concern is just traffic. So I can't support the referral. I think we'd be doing an injustice if we did support the referral. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Miles.
Yeah, I guess to the delegation, you do understand that if we turn down residential, it goes back to institutional? and the property could be sold to, for an institutional use. It could be another place of religious worship, or something else that's institutional, which is going to really increase the amount of traffic in that area. This isn't the municipality can't make it a park, and we can't make it nothing. So it's the residential or it's institutional. And I agree with you. Great Lakes is crazy. It's crazy from all the way down from Beauvais all the way up. Well, Saturdays and Sundays it's worse, but it is a busy street. But the reality of the situation is that almost 2-acre site, you could have another place of religious worship there. So if council takes the step to not move ahead with the 15 houses, the applicant tomorrow could put that property for sale for a place of religious worship, and they would be able to have that as of right without council saying yay or nay. This is just a process to process the application. So I think you might want to think about that, because it would be a lot worse having another. I mean, we got the 2 schools, you've got the mosque, you've got the senior center. Like another place of worship on that street, I think would really, really impact the area. So I don't know if you want us. I don't mind deferring this for you to maybe speak to your councillors about it, and maybe speak to your councillors and one of our planners, because it really is. We don't have the option to make it a park or anything else. It's a place of worship or the 15 houses. And honestly, from my perspective, I know it's busy there, but another place of worship, holy mackerel, that would be a heck of a lot worse. And we have no control over what the owners of that property do. If they want to sell it, they can sell it. And if it's a place of worship, it's a place of worship. So I'm going to support the referral, but I think the councillors for the area should sit down with you and maybe one of our planners and explain this situation to you, because really residential is going to be a lot less impact on the community than the institutional use. So I'm only going to support the referral. You might want to split it.
Well, it's a referral motion specific for a traffic study to be undertaken. So if the referral motion fails, you can move a deferral to give time for the applicant, the area councillors and staff to meet.
Well, maybe they would have that discussion, and I won't say any more, but it really worries me that if we do take this action as a council, we're going to exacerbate the situation worse. I don't think that's what you want. I don't know that you've considered the either or. So anyway, I'll leave it at that.
Okay. Thank you. Councillor Paleshi.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I can't support the referral, and I'll give you a little example. Up in our area, we have a smaller plot of property, 1.85 acres, that we're trying to get 20 houses on, and the applicant is coming with 40 houses. So if we say no to this now, like Councillor Gibson had mentioned, the thing is they'll probably go to the Ontario Municipal Board with a non-decision and come back with something greater, and that would be their right, and then our hands are tied. I suggest that you take the 15 houses. I understand that you may not like it, but you can speak with your area councillors, have your area councillors talk to the applicant, and try to make something that's a little bit more palatable for the residents. But I also, not only will I won't support the referral, I will support staff recommendations, but I'll also ask for this application and the area kind of overview to be sent to the new Safety Advisory Committee to have a look at that area to try and keep it, with the amount of schools and the congestion on the road. to have that committee look at this area to see if they can mitigate any extra safety measures or what they can do. Is that, can I do that? Or it's not even struck yet, the committee? What can I do here, Peter? Come
Through
on.
you, Madam Chair.
Work with me.
Council's already established a school traffic safety council for which this may be an appropriate matter, but not necessarily the Brampton Community Safety Advisory Committee, which...
We can send it to them too.
I think you can add that to the agenda separate and apart from our actions this evening here.
I'll leave that up to the area
Okay.
councillors, but
Okay.
that's my suggestion. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Councillor Dillon.
Thank you. Just, I think what the residents are asking for, I don't think they're totally against the housing. I think what they want to do is just make sure that we've done, and again, to use the word due diligence, even if there was, because I had some discussions with them as well, I think even if there was a place of worship, they'd want the traffic study done as well. So I don't think if there was a place of worship there, it'd be another mosque. I don't think it'd be another gurdwara because there's another gurdwara there as well. Probably be a church where they come every Sunday, so I'm not sure how much of an impact it would have during the main hours, the traffic hours, which are probably in the morning time and the afternoon during Monday to Friday period. So I think a place of worship might not even be that bad for the residents of the area. But just to address it as well, I don't think townhouses, I don't even know if staff would approve of townhouses. Doesn't really fit into the character of the neighborhood. I guess what the role of the applicant is to finish that area off and to have the personality remain the same, if I'm not mistaken. But we just saw the report before the 7.1 passed because some residents had come and they were concerned about traffic, and council basically denied that. So the landowner who owned the warehouse was denied. I think that, it could have brought jobs, could have had some impact, positive impact, but, the residents were heard. And I think the residents are coming today, and all they want to do is be heard. And I think they want, again, for the proper traffic studies to be done, because I think there's a greater issue here than just these 15 homes. There's information, I think, that would be beneficial. And I think that by getting a traffic study done, we could see the full breadth of what's actually really going on there. So, again, just with the discussions I've had with them, I don't think they're necessarily against it, but they just want to make sure that everything, all the due diligence is done, and that we've basically studied everything that we can, because there's factors that have come along since 2013 and or even before that when this decision was made. So again, speaking to the referral, I think the referral is the right thing to do. I think it'll ease a lot of the questions that they do have, and I think it'll help us as a city make a better decision as to what we're doing.
Councillor Sprovieri.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair, and I appreciate some of the councillors' comments. I understand where Councillor Gibson and Miles is coming from, and and I also understand the residents' concerns about the traffic issue, and this is not the only area that we get concerns from. We get it all the time from right across the wards, and I'm sure that everybody gets it in their own areas too. So regardless, something has to go in this property. Now, from my understanding, is that when this area was first planned, there was a traffic study already that was provided, taking into account the land use, whether it be a place of worship or whether it be a residential, and that traffic study obviously is still available in our records. Would you say? So it would be interesting if staff could review that study to see whether it was borderline the traffic that these developments, and I don't know whether the mosque was ever taken into account because originally this mosque was planned to go on Sun Forest, And then we made, because of the site and the problem on Sun Forest, we agreed to allow them to do a land exchange with a developer, with Metris, I believe it was, and they were able to come to this site. And I don't know whether that was taken into account in that traffic study, the initial traffic study. So if staff can look into that and see whether it was borderline or whether it was, and also I am concerned about if we turn this down, that the developer may come in with a denser application, and there's nothing to stop them from doing that. And we know that I know what happened on Sunny Meadows and Sandalwood, where the developer brought in a bunch of townhouses there that nobody wanted, but they got approved at the end. And we know that we're not the final approving authority. We know that the OMB gets involved if the developer chooses that. So what I would like staff to do is I want to just support the staff recommendation with the provisions that between now and when this comes back for the bylaw, that you review the traffic study to make sure that everything was taken into account, and whether it was borderline or whether, and also I would ask that, I don't know whether we can do it here, but for our traffic department to do to undertake this as a traffic calming study, which we have done in a number of streets already, and to actually have this studied under the traffic calming process through the city of Brampton. So that would ensure that if there's any problems, that the study would identify them and the solution could be found, or at least we work to find a solution on how to resolve. It could be that the schools would have to stagger their starting hours. I know that maybe they do already, but maybe they don't, and that could be very helpful by staggering the starting times 10-15 minutes apart in the morning and so on. So I want to support the staff recommendation with those kind of directions, Madam Chair. And thank you.
Councillor Miles.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Could I ask the imam to come back down to the podium just for a few minutes? So, did you have...
So,
if
sorry,
I
members
could-
of committee, we need to, we've already received the delegation, so we need to take a vote if we're going to hear from the delegation again.
I'm going to ask him questions?
We need to vote. Got him back on his delegation. You moved Councillor Miles. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. So when you came in front of council this evening to address us in regards to the 15 houses, did you realize that rather than the 15 houses, it could be another place of worship?
I did. I did. I came up, and our delegation came because we're concerned about the chaos on the street itself. And the majority of people who live in the area have young children. That's why Great Lakes Schools is overpopulated, and the Catholic school is overpopulated. It's not about 15 more residences or 40 or a place of worship. It's about how do you take care of the traffic issues that are occurring. Okay. I was there that morning when one of the elderly gentlemen was crossing the road at Damaris and got hit. And the person who hit him put him in his car and brought him to the mosque. We called the ambulance subsequently. I was there. I don't want to see that. I mean, we get complaints all the time in our mosque that the kids are running across the street, hurrying to go to school or going to the high school. Whether it's a place of worship or it's 40 or it's 15 residents, there is a traffic issue.
Yeah. Great.
Now, it's whether you put stop signs or crosswalks at every single intersection all those side streets empty into Great Lakes. It's a fact. I'm not going to come here and say you shouldn't have voted to put residents, next to the gas station and all along the way. It was bad insight to begin with. I'm not going to say that. I guess I did say it. Anyhow.
Okay,
We've been fasting all day, so I'm a little bit blurry.
Oh, sorry.
So, no, it's okay. So, my concern is if there is a place of worship, it's not operating at 8 o'clock in the morning.
Okay, so.
And it's not leaving at 3:30. The congregation or the congregants are not coming at 3:30. So I would disagree. A place of worship may be actually better.
I'm sorry, but this is not the opportunity for debate.
Okay.
So
the question was asked
I just,
and an answer
thank
was
you.
offered.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much, because based on the imam's response, I do think Councillor Sprovieri is on the right track. That what he has said is that we need our traffic people at the City of Brampton to take a look at that road and see what we can do from a traffic safety or a traffic calming standpoint. And we do have traffic engineers who are trained at doing that. And I think that's really important based on what I see on that road myself. So in that regards, then, I am going to support the recommendation. I do think that there is going to be less impact on the community with the 15 residential houses than a place of worship, but I do think that the city should be taking a look at the traffic impact in that community as a whole, from Councillor Sprovieri, from actually Beauvert all the way up, with the amount of places that we have on that road. So that's the kind of recommendation, and I don't have any problem with asking staff to come back after taking a look at the original traffic report and seeing whether or not the change of uses and bringing the mosque has impacted the traffic study as well.
Alan?
Through you, Madam Chair, just to put one piece of information through to you, there's some contemplation through Councillor Sprovieri's considerations that we could come back with some information at the time of a rezoning transmittal report. I just want to confirm that
Draft plan.
Sorry, exactly, and it would be the draft plan. Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Fortini.
Thank you. Through the chair, I guess Councillor Miles suggested some things. I've done inspections up here, and I gotta agree with him. They're probably the third school with the highest in tickets, but it says here, can't we just defer to the next public planning meeting? Because it's approved in principle. Just refer it, maybe that they could get together, come up with a compromise, and then we bring it back on the next planning.
That's not the intent of this, is saying that we approve it in principle pending the satisfaction of all of the conditions that are set out in the recommendation, and staff have heard the concerns around traffic. So I've got two motions. One is a referral with direction to staff to undertake a traffic study, or to have a traffic study done. If that does not fail, Councillor Sprovieri has moved the staff recommendations with direction to staff to, you've got it written.
So, Councillor Sprovieri's motion would be the staff recommendations 1 through 6, with a 7th recommendation that staff be requested to further obtain additional comments from the city's traffic engineers, including review of the original traffic study completed at the time of the original plan of subdivision, and report back to committee for further consideration on this matter prior to draft plan approval by staff.
Can we add also about the school on that? Because we've done inspection that there's under deferral.
I'm sorry?
Under school safety.
Oh, you want it also referred to the Traffic Safety Council?
I think it's the third school.
To the Brampton Safety Council?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, we need to finish the debate on the deferral. We're just putting out a whole menu of options here. Councillor Gibson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Speaking against referral, I want the people in the audience to understand that a traffic study will be a traffic study done by, if we direct this traffic study done by applicant, will be a traffic study that they would do based on the 15 houses. Not a traffic study that's going to tell you how they can fix all the problems there. And there's obviously a lot of problems around there. And I think staff have already indicated that 15 properties like this isn't going to change anything. I don't want to put words in their mouth, but I think that's what they told us. So by delaying this, I think we're really putting you in jeopardy to get something much worse in that area. I think Councillor Spovier is right on track, and I think we're working with the traffic department and the safety committee and the school safety committee and work with the residents is the answer to solve some of your problems. But as Councillor Spovier said, we all have these problems, and no matter what we do, sometimes we can't fix it all, no matter what. So I think that's important that they understand exactly what a traffic study will come back with. And it's not a fix at all for the problems. And I would rather support what Councillor Spovier is putting in front of us if this turns down, and try to get to the actual problem in the area and try to fix it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Palacio on the referral motion.
Referral, and my second and last time speaking, Madam Chair, specifically to the referral. If we refer this now, it will go as a non-decision. I can see this happening, and the potential for it to go to the Ontario Municipal Board. Now, the comment around 40 houses doesn't mesh with this area. There's in the 1.85 acres that I had talked about at the corner of Highwood and Highway 10. Those are a lot bigger lots than the ones around here, and a lot bigger houses. So those don't mesh. So I'm very sympathetic to what you were saying down here, and I do want, and safety is my top priority, and I really want the area to be safe, especially when you're talking about kids in the area. It's a new subdivision. There's lots of families in there. I travel this road almost all the time because I'm always going to Home Depot for stuff because my wife tells me to do that. So I think it is in your best interest to support what Councillor Spovieri is recommending. I honestly believe I can support that as long as it's, coming back for draft plan approval, and I agree with what Councillor Gibson was saying too. I honestly believe that it's the right thing to do, and I'm very sympathetic towards you living in the community and what you were saying. Thank you.
I understand you don't do anything you're told, Councillor Palacio. That's just what I hear.
My wife says that too.
Councillor Dillon, your third time.
Yep, it'll be my last time. So I really do appreciate that. I can also, sympathize with you because I have to drop my kids off as per my wife's orders every day, pretty much just off of Sailwind. But I have a question for staff. What is the difference between the traffic study that Councillor Spovieri is suggesting compared to the traffic study, say for example, any other applicant would undertake?
Through you, Madam Chair. I'm not sure of the specifics that are referenced within the draft resolution or recommendation, but I was understanding that it would contain really a direction for staff to satisfy ourselves, through the review of the traffic situation for the site and just the immediate surrounding area, that we would satisfy really ourselves rather than have the applicants go out and commission a full-blown traffic study. I don't have an engineering background. I really can't speak to the all the specific differences between the one analysis and the other, but the traffic study, I think a full-blown traffic study that the applicant would complete would look at counts, and it would look at some specific calculations that are done on really the modeling of really what would be foreseen as far as the number of trips and how that figures in with certain times of day. I think staff wouldn't go through that same amount of length, but understand through some site visits during peak periods, understanding the signals that are there as well at the intersection close by, what tweaks and what modifications to the operation of the road could be modified in order to improve the situation if need be. So it would be looking at some changes to the operations, signage, signal light timing, versus a full-blown review of all the modeling and calculations.
Right, so you said the city would satisfy itself compared to a full-blown study, and I think that's what kind of what they're asking for. And I think so. I think the referral stands as is, but I think that we're not in a position to scare these guys and tell them that we're going to go to the OMB or tell them that they could be worse off. They're coming here with an issue, and just as we had right before this, there's people standing there who had issues with traffic because it affects their area, and these guys live there every day, and I think they deserve that even if it's 15 houses, number one, that they're not being told that, hey, you know what, either accept this or you're going to get townhouses. I don't think they deserve that. Number two, I don't think that, well, you didn't say that, maybe somebody else did, that, they're going to say it's going to go to OMB or it might be worse off for them after, any which way. So I think they deserve it, and so I'm going to stick with the referral. And I'm hopeful that just the same way council listened to the previous agenda item, we'll be able to listen to these guys as well.
Councillor Bowman.
Thank you very much. No problem. I agree, Councillor Dillon, but I just do not want to compare the two. I mean, we are talking 15 homes to 500 trucks a day. There is a difference. So please, I just don't want any comparison made to that. I do sympathize. We need to satisfy these individuals that traffic will be looked at. And I'm confident actually that Councillor Sprovieri's acceptance in principle, with the caveat that we do this study, would satisfy these individuals as well. So I just wanted to clear that up. Thanks.
I'll now call the vote on a recorded vote on the referral motion with direction to staff. I beg your pardon? Electronic vote? Can we do that this evening, Mr. Clerk? Are you ready for us? Are you in favor of referring this back to staff for the traffic study? The answer is yes, or the answer is no.
So members of committee, the motion is that item 7.2 be referred back to staff to request the completion of a traffic study to support the proposed draft plan of subdivision to be completed by the applicant and subsequent report back to committee. Recorded vote's been requested. Voting is now open. All members have voted. And the referral motion does not carry. 2 to 8.
Thank you.
Sorry, I don't know why that was
So
taken off the
Councillor
screen.
Sprovieri has moved the...
Sorry, just a second. I don't know why that came off the screen because...
You don't know why what came off the screen?
I need to display that again. Okay.
Yes, I voted.
The chair voted.
It doesn't show that I voted, but I did. Oh, okay.
One seat for the Councillor Moore is not counted in the vote, but her seat as chair is counted.
Okay.
Yep.
So the main recommendations, we'll vote on the amendment first. Those in favor of the amendment proposed by Councillor Sprovieri to add number 7 that speaks to referring it back to staff to gather information on the original traffic study and other traffic calming measures and
Traffic calming study of
sorry? It's not a referral, no, no. Adding that staff be directed to gather traffic information prior to site plan approval or...
Members of committee, the motion...
Sorry,
If
I see them kind of looking at me. I don't know what the correct language is.
Madam Chair, so I believe the motion from Councillor Sprovieri is moving staff recommendations 1 through 6 as published in the report. It's adding a 7th recommendation that staff be requested to further obtain additional comments from the city's traffic engineers, including review of the original traffic study completed at the time of the original plan of subdivision approval, and report back to committee for further consideration of this matter prior to draft plan approval by staff. And Councillor Fortini has moved that the Brampton School Traffic Safety Council be requested to further review the traffic issues identified in this area in the vicinity of the schools.
Okay. What I was doing was calling the vote on the two the two additions to, but you say we can do it as a whole package? Okay. A recorded electronic vote on the staff recommendations as amended.
All members have voted. And the motion carries 8-2. Sorry, my apologies. I don't know why it's coming off the screen. I'll put it back up.
Are we set to go, Mr. Clerk?
Yep.
Okay. Thank you very much. Members of committee will now move to item 7.3 was in consent, I believe. 8.1 is in consent. And now for the most patient people in the world. Edward Zuchek and Bassem Matuk. Our first delegation, if we just wait a minute here. We'll bring forward report 11.1.
Is it going now?
Mr. Zuchek, if you'd like to come forward, you're our first registered delegate on this, and then Bassem. Hello and welcome.
Hi, thank you. Are you going to put my presentation on the screen? I had it prepared for the first meeting and then the deferral after that.
Mr. Zuchek
No.
had a presentation that was
Yeah, I submitted one.
the first time. This was before it was
Yeah.
deferred.
I have handouts.
Do you have some handouts? That would be helpful. Thank you.
That's
I'd just like to remind you that you have 5 minutes this
okay,
evening.
thank you. I'd like to address the issues with regards to Leadership Drive, which would be the main entry point to this new development. There is only one access point, being Leadership Drive. It's very congested. Quite often, traffic has to weave in and out of cars parking on the street. We have to stop. There's cars overhanging driveways. There's a real safety concern with regards to the traffic and coming in and out with only one entry point and exit point. So with that being said, back during the meetings in October of 2015, these same issues were brought up by a lot of the residents on Leadership Drive, and in fact I believe there was a petition with regards to that submitted by the residents of Leadership Drive. Together with that, Back in October of 2015, I made the same recommendation with regards to adding additional entry and exit points. If you look on the map, I've drawn a couple of additional points where it's possible to enter the new development. There's A, B, and C. Point B is a part of a previous plan, so I'm not sure why that wasn't considered. That would be most logical way and would actually give the residents of Leadership Drive a second way out, instead of going all the way up to the top and joining in with James Potter. Okay. The way that this plan is right now, there's no net benefit to the community at all. So why are we doing this without any net benefit to create more congestion, more traffic, weaving in and out? A lot of the times the cars just have to stop and let one another by. So that's one issue. The second issue is, if it's going to go forward the way that it is, why is the density? It's a medium. It's zoned for medium. So theoretically, you could put 50 or 60-foot lots and just decrease the number of homes there. So that's another option that I'm not sure why that wasn't taken into account. The third issue is, why are we even crossing a railway track? You have safety and noise concerns. I think everyone's well aware of recent fatalities along that same railway track. So now you're going to add only one entry and exit point over a train track where people have to travel through, and you have a liability with regards to that. Again, pathway B that I drew is part of a previous plan, so it's logical to do. You don't have railway tracks to go over. Additionally, point A, going across Honor Oak, that's another possible way to go across, although that goes over the railway tracks. But it is another possible solution so that you don't have the congestion on Leadership Drive. With regards to traffic studies, and I know there's been a lot of talk about traffic studies going on this evening, and a lot of the same concerns that were brought up in previous discussions here already this evening. You have a lot of people building basement apartments, and I know that the traffic studies or whatever goes on in the planning, they don't consider that. But when you have all along Leadership Drive, a long narrow stretch with lots of basement apartments and cars overhanging driveways, and bylaw enforcement not really wanting to get involved in that, it creates a real concern, and it kind of skews the numbers. Like, to me, and from my point of view, that the studies are really meaningless when you're not taking into account the real numbers. A population that is a lot more dense than what's actually been recorded. So based on all of that, I would recommend, first of all, that this be rejected and completely redone, the preferred choice being entry through point B. Barring that, if that's rejected, then decreasing the density, making this 50 and 60-foot lots, or one of the other access points that I've drawn up there. Okay. And I think that's basically what I had to say, other than the safety concerns with regards to crossing that railway track.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
You did pretty good.
Thank you.
5 minutes and 8 seconds.
Yeah. Oh, thank you.
Thank you. Our next delegate is Bassem Matuk.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
You too have 5 minutes this evening, sir.
Pardon me?
You have 5 minutes.
Yes. So you've all received special policy, the text of special policy area 6. It was distributed, I think, at the last meeting. But any reasonable person reading it, including the planner. I had a discussion with him today. Would agree that the text of it is basically that adequate evergreen trees need to be planted along the tracks in consideration of the residents on the other side of the tracks along Churchville Road, which means the communities of Witchwood and the few estate homes there. The important point being in consideration of those residents, which means that they need to be visible at the time of planting to those residents and provide a certain function, which is to provide a certain degree of privacy or visual distraction. And I would hope that that specific wording or something to that effect, not just an allusion to this special policy, be included in the recommendation report. My second point is regarding the railway crossing across the crossing necessary for the subdivision across the railway tracks, which in 8.2.2 of this recommendation report says that it needs to be to the satisfaction of basically Brampton as well as the ORDC. And what I'd like to know is the wording to the satisfaction of the ORDC, does that imply or necessitate an acceptance or an approval or consent by the ORDC, or just a satisfaction to their requirements? And that, I might hear that that's the same thing, but it's actually the previous May's version of the recommendation report that made that distinction. It initially said that in this respect, approvals from the ORDC will be required to construct an entrance, and then later goes on to say that the crossing has to be to the satisfaction of the ORDC. And why that's important is in a letter from the ORDC dated June 17th, 2013, the ORDC said that they were not in favor and would reject this crossing, but should the city permit access by other means, we offer the following. And then they offer some recommendations for that crossing, which would imply that according to the current recommendation report, all the applicant would need to do is demonstrate that they satisfy the recommendations that the ORDC puts forth, rather than actually obtaining their approval. So I'd like to understand that we will be planting mature trees along the tracks, that be specifically stated in the recommendation report, and as well as an understanding of the recommendation report, and specifically the meaning of the satisfaction to the satisfaction of the ORDC. And I could quote some statistics about railway crossings across Canada, where there's between 70 and 100 deaths per year across Canada. That in Brampton alone, in the last 2 years, there's been 2 fatalities at level crossings with collisions by a pedestrian in one case and by a car in another case. But I won't. I guess I just did, but someone else used that joke already. But anyway, but thank you for laughing. With respect to the planting, I suggested in a previous discussion that perhaps 15-foot trees be planted maybe every 15 feet. That would offer a satisfactory visual distraction. And I don't think that's an unreasonable amount. After all, we're just talking about planting trees, which I think everybody should be in favor of. And just last week, just down the street on Credit View Road, somebody on a private residence planted a dozen or so extremely mature trees on their own property. Again, that was just last week. And I don't think that's an unreasonable request. And with that, I'm going to close half a minute early.
You're on the home stretch. Good job. Thank you. Someone like to move receipt of the delegations? Councillor Palashi. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Staff, if you would like to, if you're able to respond to the two questions, one around the mature trees, the other around how you define satisfying the ORDC. Mr. Matuk, you can sit down now. This isn't a Q&A. You have a question of the delegation? Oh, thank you. Bought yourself some more time. Councillor Palashi.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just around the mature trees, and so what's the point of the trees? Is it as a noise buffer for the new subdivision?
Well, according to, sorry, was that?
Yeah,
that
okay, go ahead.
Okay, so according to the special policy, it says, let's see here. First of all, it says that that the developer, or to that effect, shall only be developed with, the development shall only be developed for single detached, semi-detached, or townhome dwellings. And the actual clause says, development of the subject lands shall have adequate regard for the low-density character of the adjacent residents along Upper Churchville Road through judicious use of landscaping and berming, including the planting of appropriate evergreen vegetation between any required barrier and the Orangeville Development Corporation right-of-way opposite the existing residence, which very clearly implies, I think as any reasonable person would read into this, that they need to be visible and visible to the residents on the west side of the tracks, and offer some sort of visual distraction.
So you want, if you live on the west side of the tracks?
Sorry, it's not that I want, it's the special policy that requires it. We agree with the special policy, and we want to have that special policy enforced. That was approved by council, I think in 2010. We just want that enforced, that mature trees visible on our side of the tracks be planted. We're not saying completely blot out, that community. We want to be reasonable, and we're saying this is just planting of trees. We just want to enforce an existing policy. We would like mature trees that we can see. Right now, there's quite a lot of very, probably 30-year-old trees or more. I'm not sure, but.
So, Councillor Palashi, your question is really a question of clarification for staff in terms of.
No, my question was what was the reason why you wanted these trees there, and when do you want them? I wasn't sure. Do you want them before construction or after? Part of the whole site?
Within reason. We want to be reasonable. We know that there's extremely mature trees being removed. That happens everywhere. But the special policy and our own sensibilities would like trees to be planted that are visible to us, that offer some sort of visual distraction. They don't have to be complete
For sure.
privacy.
I understand now.
And within a certain, and I know that development plans take a very long time, and we had an issue with a park that wasn't developed until very long, 4 or 5 years after the development started. So
let's not get into how long
it was a question of clarification, and I think you've clarified.
Really quickly for staff, the mature trees that they indicated that may be coming out, are there mature trees that may be staying as well, close to the tracks?
Is this question to staff?
Staff, yeah.
Okay.
I said it.
Thank you, Mr. Matuk.
Thank you.
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair. There very well may be some mature trees that are located within that area of a buffer block which runs just alongside the track that can stay. Staff will, through detailed design, be looking at the exact composition of what's there now, what can stay, what has to be removed, and what the remediation plan is to really offset anything that has to be removed. And that's right, through the delegation we've heard that there is a special policy that exists currently which states that there is to be really specific planting within that stretch so that it does really screen the development that's being proposed here. And so yes, there is a condition that we've included within our report. It's item 8.2.1, which identifies exactly that. That's really through condition of draft approval that's to be satisfied. And with respect to the the access to this subdivision that's proposed, yes, it would be an acceptance from the ORDC that would be required to be received just in advance of the draft approval of the subdivision.
Councillor Pellecci, you're done? Okay, thank you. Councillor Bowman has moved the staff recommendation. Oh, sorry. Oh, right. Okay. Can I get you to explain that? Because this report has been deferred twice, so there's some, it's more than just approving this recommendation before us.
Through you, Madam Chair. So yes, this matter's been deferred a few times. So what committee will have before it is a motion to receive the delegations and correspondence and submissions from the two delegations that we heard this evening. They will also be receiving the staff report that's dated March 8th, which I believe is on page 11.1-1, and then they'll be approving the staff recommendations in the subsequent report from staff dated April 19th, which is on the screen in front of you and starts on page 11.1-48.
And Councillor Bowman has moved all of that, correct?
Sure.
Okay. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you very much. We'll now go back to the agenda. I think we just have two pieces of correspondence under 13.1, Mr. Clerk. We didn't, did we receive those under 4.1? Okay, and the other is the correspondence from Scott Snyder, Turkstra Matza regarding item 4.4. Been moved by Councillor Miles. All those in favor? That's carried. Yes, Councillor Pellecci? On the piece of correspondence? Okay.
There was a referral that had been made for the employment land conversion, and specifically the employment numbers for Heritage Heights. When's that referral coming back? Do we know?
Through you, Madam Chairman, we're reporting on that referral and the two outstanding conversions June 19th.
Thanks.
Okay. You could have asked that under council question period, which was next, so there you go. So you moved to 13 point. You know, wives are getting a really bad rap here tonight. Right, Councillor Miles? You don't hear us complaining about our spouses, just saying. So 13.2 was moved. I think we voted on receipt of that. Councillor question period. Councillor Pellecci had a question that was asked and answered. Are there, Councillor Sprovieri?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Do we have an in-camera tonight, or? I was under the understanding we're dealing with that daycare issue. No, when is that? Is that coming Wednesday?
Through you, Madam Chair. So the the report that's going to be coming forward relating to the daycare is scheduled for the June 21st council meeting, I believe.
Oh, okay. For some reason, I believe it was tonight. Thank you, Madam Chair.
All the emails you thought it was pending, did you?
Yes.
Okay. Seeing no other councillor, are there any questions from the members of the public on any item that was dealt with on this evening's agenda? Seeing none. There's no closed session. Our next meeting is scheduled for Monday, June the 19th. And at some point, members of committee, we're going to have a conversation. Staff advised myself and the vice chair that they have a number of reports that they are trying to wrap up, and getting them wrapped up before the end of this month is going to be very difficult, and there may be a need to take a serious look at whether or not there's a need to have a meeting in either July or August. We do have two placeholders in our calendar for those, so there will be a survey. I know everybody's turning up their nose, but if there's things that it's best to move through, and if there's items for even a city council meeting, if they can be brought straight there. But I'm just giving you a heads up on on that. But in the meantime, our next meeting is June the 19th. Those three words we like to hear most. Motion to adjourn. Councillor Palashi, all in favor? That's carried. Thank you.